Welcome. We're going to be getting started here in a moment. In the interest of time, we do have quorum. We will be expecting another board member to perhaps join us. We're still trying to make sure they're okay and en route. But we will go ahead and get started. All right, all ready? Very good. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ozzy Gonzalez, TriMet Board President, and I'd like to welcome everyone here and online today to the TriMet Board of Directors meeting for December 13th, 2023. We're gathered here at the University of Oregon's downtown Portland campus, the White Stag building, for this board meeting today, and we're also live streaming on YouTube. We have our director, one board member, Director Kellogg, will not be joining us today, and we are still waiting to see if Director Edwards will be able to make it. But we do have quorum, as I mentioned, and so we will be moving forward with the board business for the day. And thank you to everyone for being with us today. As in past meetings, we will begin with the public forum. We have 7 individuals signed up today to testify here in person, and as of now, nobody signed up to testify online. So we will go ahead and begin with those that are present and have signed up to testify. I will be calling up to the testimony table 2 people at a time by name, and we ask those who are testifying to please direct your comments to TriMet and our transit-related services rather than other topics. And we also ask that you limit your testimony to 3 minutes per individual. If you are unable to limit your comments to 3 minutes, you may also submit your comments in writing. TriMet staff can provide an email address for you to send those written comments if you don't already have it. So with that, our first 2 people testifying this morning are Thomas Craig and Deborah Olson. If you could please make your way up. Welcome. And there's a button on the microphones. When it's green, it's on. When it's red, it's off.
Hello. Okay. Hello, President Gonzalez and the TriMet Board. I'm Thomas Craig, and I live off the line 75, which I maintain is your best bus line, despite its rather sad 20-minute evening frequency. I was pleased to hear, as I reviewed your strategy session in October, that the overwhelmingly critical issue of revenue has not been entirely forgotten. It was on the agenda as an area of focus, and when TriMet staff gave a rather vague presentation that didn't address the issue with the seriousness it deserves, Vice President Lewis rightfully and directly asked for more. Further, in discussion of service, Director Frisbee wisely pointed to the need for frequency, and President Gonzalez said that access to quality frequent transit specifically needs to be measured. Well-funded frequent service is what your riders need. I'm not the only rider who agrees. It was interesting to note in the survey results presented to you last month that while riders feel notably less safe on MAX than on the bus, they also prefer MAX service to the bus overall. This was one reason why it was disappointing to see the board retreat after those survey results focus on safety and security without substantively addressing the broader service and revenue issue. Safety and security are critical issues for all riders, but it's friendly staff and fellow riders who keep each other safe. Not always, and sometimes not at all, security personnel. Those same survey results made clear that riders desperately want more staff, but are not at all sure that more security staff is the solution. Unsurprising after the dramatic growth of security presence over the last 2 years. We need to be talking about a 150% increase in service hours, not security personnel. The supposed 120 million annual ride moonshot for Vision 2030 is nothing of the sort. It is a paltry 1% annual increase in ridership over 2015 levels, and while we're all aware that COVID presented a generational challenge for transit, car culture and climate change didn't take a break for the pandemic, and we need to redouble our efforts to keep up. You need billions of dollars, not a worthless fare increase that's always going to be too little for you and too much for your riders. At least $1 billion per year for operations alone to put the amount of service on the ground that will present the attractive network that will drive a true vision of 250 million or more annual riders in 2030. And that means you and your staff must be going to the state and local, federal politicians that do have access to that kind of money if you want to help this region achieve its climate and safety goals. If you think that type of vision is unimaginable, then I'm here to say that your imagination is not sufficient. Our region's children are destined to be run over by a self-driving car or live their lives sedentary in traffic on an 8-lane highway if we don't start acting with intention and integrity today. As we look forward to our next statewide transportation bill, we need you and your staff to show more leadership. We need you to fight for transformational change. Fight for 15 minutes as a floor, not a ceiling. Fight for your riders, not against them. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Deborah.
Good morning, I'm Deborah Olson. I live in Gresham. I live almost a half a mile from the nearest transportation, which is the Civic Max, which also is not always dependable and down for so many reasons. I'm here because I'm still concerned of the fare increase you all voted in, and I've brought 30 cents to help somebody out to pay it forward for those who won't have that 30 cents starting January 1st and 2nd. I am also concerned that we have the lack of bus service running from Rockwood up Burnside to the urgent care clinic, which I've mentioned before, the Fred Meyers. We miss out on 4 grocery stores, 3 pharmacies, and all the businesses that pay the TriMet business tax. Several of my neighbors can't hike a half a mile to the max to get transportation. They have to depend on friends, neighbors, or pay 3 times the amount on a TriMet lift ticket each way. So for a senior citizen, that's $5 for a ride back and forth. That's a lot, considering they might be able to get their prescriptions for $1.35. I'm sorry, $1.860 now, or whatever it's going to be. And last but not least, on the TriMet lift, you need to have some restrooms in areas for the TriMet public riders to use and the Lyft drivers to use. We took a detour of about 10 blocks so a Lyft driver could use the bathroom at the Safeway Cancer Institute on 47th before he took another passenger to his temporary residence in a rehab center and then got me to my meeting about 40 minutes late. Bus Riders Unite meeting, actually. And so, there are issues. We'd like bus service at Burnside. We'd be happy right now with some bus service every half hour, as long as our ice cream doesn't melt on the way home. I'm done for now. Thank you. I'm going to leave this up here in case anybody else wants to put 30 cents in to help a future bus rider out.
Like many riders, I didn't have exact change, so I'll have to pay 70 cents extra.
Thank you, Deborah. Next to public testimony, Jan Campbell and Brian Loop. And as you make your way to the table, I'll point out to the board, there are some handouts that have been distributed. You should have in front of you. They were provided by Brian Loop and are included as part of the testimony for today. Just wanted to point that out. Brian Hoop. Thank you.
It's kind of funny that Brian and I are up here together. We used to work together for many years at the City of Portland, so it's good to see you, Brian. Good morning, President and board members. I'm kind of coming as your conscience today. My name is Jan Campbell, and I am chair of the Committee on Accessible Transportation. And I see a new board member, I think, right? Tyler? Are you new? Hi, Tyler. As you probably remember, that Kat was very concerned about the impacts of the fare increase on riders who are low-income, older adults, and people living with a disability. We were prepared to support the fare increase with the following mitigation strategies employed to minimize adverse impacts to older adults and riders who experience disability. So we did approve the fare increase, but I just want to remind you of those mitigation strategies. And probably most of you have got the letter in your packet. I believe it was around in May, but for you who probably didn't get it, I'm just going to go over those. Ensure that any future fare increases include an evaluation of increasing the fare cap as opposed to keeping the cap at the current level. Without increasing the fare cap, frequent travelers who may be able to afford the fare increase are unharmed, but riders who don't travel often enough to earn the cap are unbanked or cash fare purveyors are bearing the brunt of the impact of the fare increase. We urge you to consider this approach on any future fare increase. Pilot 100% subsidized annual passes for fixed route trips for Lyft-eligible riders and gauge the potential cost savings of the pilot as a long-term strategy to sustain the initiative. By measuring the reduced cost of the fixed route service versus Lyft and encouraging fixed route ridership for Lyft paratransit riders who are conditionally eligible for Lyft service and able to access fixed route services, the program could be self-sustaining. And the third one was the Lyft riders who are not able to use fixed route buses and trains evaluate a pilot project to provide the Instant Cart 1-year membership for grocery, pharmacy, pet food, and other essential good deliveries. This would not only alleviate the cost of fare for Lyft riders for these essential needs, but would create a more accessible path forward for riders who can more conveniently order goods online that they can in person. So these were the types of initiatives that we encouraged you to embrace, as it will not only aid in returning ridership to those who need it most, it will likely lead to increased ridership. And with a commitment from TriMet to build out these activities with CAT in the coming year, then that's why we supported the fair. So I hope you'll remember these and that we can put those forth. I also, as an individual, would like to support the HR Policy 4.4. This would help with the same-day service on the Lyft. I kind of call call myself the dinosaur of the community, and I remember the Lyft when we hardly had anything, and I keep telling the staff there that before I go on my journey, I would love to see the same-day service. So I'm hoping we can get that on before, again, I go on my journey. And then the last one, ask you to support the bylaws of CAT. I believe you'll be voting on that today, and CAT worked very hard on those, so hopefully you'll support those. And again, I want to thank Keith, that's all your advocacy on the CAT committee. You mean so much to us, and thank you for all your advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks so much for your service through the committee.
Thank you.
Brian, pardon me on the name.
No worries. President Gonzalez and board members, my name is Brian Hoop. I'm a resident of the Linton neighborhood in Northwest Portland. I'm writing to oppose proposed bus service cuts to the Linton neighborhood as proposed as part of the Forward Together planning effort. Along with the Linton Neighborhood Association, I'm asking TriMet to reconsider and continue bus service to Linton with the proposed changes to line 15 for at least a year to see if ridership improves. TriMet's proposing switching service to Linton from the number 16 bus to the number 15 bus and scaling back service north of the St. John's Bridge to only rush hour trips, primarily to serve Lincoln High School students. The line 15 route is similar to the former, long ago, historic number 17 bus route, which residents preferred back then before previous changes some 10 plus years ago. Please continue service north of the St. John's Bridge for at least a year. This is my recommendation, our recommendation, for at least a year to see if changes back through Northwest Portland will once again increase ridership. Recognizing TriMet needs to make cuts, we recognize you may need to scale back service a bit to the old line, what the old line 17 used to be, perhaps scaling back on Saturday or no service on Sundays. And just a few reasons for why we recommend giving our community an extra year to show if ridership increases. Linton residents want access to the Northwest Business District. Going back 10 plus years when we were served by the 17, people used the bus more because low-income residents and senior residents had quicker access to Northwest 21st, 23rd business districts and the hospital for medical appointments. For Lincoln students, We appreciate the consideration to continue service for Lincoln students during rush hour times, but many Lincoln students have gotten used to carpooling because Line 16 required multiple transfers through downtown to reach Lincoln High School. For the Linton Community Center, the director of the Linton Community Center tells me there are low-income residents from St. John's who access their services by taking the bus. This includes their food pantry and accessing the Multnomah County Preschool for All funded program and other after-school programs for kids. So these proposed cuts will cut off Linton from Portland for low-income residents. And then lastly, access to employment downtown. Linton residents haven't been using the number 16 bus because they don't need access to employment along Northwest Front Avenue, which is what it primarily provides right now. 16 stops at the big pink office tower. And as Jan said, I used to work downtown and would take the bus because it would get me access closer to the financial district and government center. And I hear from other professional folks who say they've stopped taking the 16 because it just requires another transfer to get from north side of downtown to the south side of downtown. So thank you for your listening to my comments and for your public service.
Thank you, Brian, for the testimony, and we did receive your letters, and I see there's from Ed Jones as well included.
Yeah, that was on behalf of the Linton Neighborhood Association. They voted in November on this issue.
Thank you. Next, for public testimony, we have Abby Griffith and Tristan Isaac.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abby Griffith, and I am Bus Riders Unite community organizer at OPPO. And I'm here today to make some comments. My first point is that OPPO is on HB 2017 Transit Advisory Committee, and for whatever reason, we are not invited back to the HB 2017 Transit Advisory Committee, and it feels weird to me because we are Bus Riders Unite organization, and pushing us out of the decision-making places is not fair to me. And I would like to ask board members consider having us back on HB 2017 committee. Another point I wanted to make is that TriMet has this way to do things like a low ridership. In my opinion, low ridership doesn't mean no ridership. When you say low ridership neighborhood, maybe like 7 people ride this bus, 8 people ride this bus, and that doesn't matter. What if I am one of those people and you cut service from low ridership area and cut people who are riding in that neighborhood because you think not enough people riding, but you are cutting our community off and then taking our resources, our way to get around way, and I don't know what we should do because I cannot drive. I need a bus. It doesn't matter how many people ride service, you need to keep it. Do not cut service because you think enough people not riding. You are not saying 0 people riding, but there's some people riding. Low ridership does not make sense. You need to remove that from TriMet status so we don't get punished for your action. Talk to your planning department and change that. Next point I wanted to make is that Rosa Parks Day is less than 2 months away. I would like to have a TriMet think about that Rosa Parks Day it's only not one day. Like, I know I acknowledge that Rosa Parks Day you recognize by putting signs and promoting and giving one day fairless transit, but one day is not enough for Rosa Parks Day. We are asking you to make it at least a month for fairless transit on Rosa Parks month. And also, I am transit dependent and I work with transit dependent community, and our community is very stressed out the upcoming fare increase. So please help them by using this 30 cents I brought, and our other community puts. If your fare inspector is gonna harass people for not having 30 cents, right here, there's 30 cents I put, please serve one person with my money. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Tristan?
Good morning. My name is Tristan. I'm the board chair of Opal Environmental Justice Oregon. It's been almost 1 year and 1 month to the day that the TriMet Board of Directors pulled a dirty trick on us all. In this very room on November 9th, 2022, current and former members of this body have participated in a retreat, a type of meeting where the board typically takes no action and thus accepts no public testimony. It was also, not coincidentally, a meeting where the board would review the kind of subject matter likely to attract significant public outcry. The business of this meeting concerned a proposal to increase fares. Board members were presented with over 2 hours of commentary from TriMet staff on the importance of fares to the agency's budget. Several members also provided their opinions on the subject, including sharing their implicit biases held against impoverished people and skepticism of the feasibility of fairless transit, and indeed social welfare policies in general, such as subsidized higher education. At the end of the meeting, then Board President Linda Simmons reports a quote-unquote straw poll of board member support for moving forward with the fare proposal. Did you catch it? A public board like TriMet is required by law to hear public comment at any meeting where official business is carried out. At regular TriMet board meetings, this business takes the form of resolutions and ordinances where board members vote to approve or reject items. However, this was not a regular board meeting. It was a board retreat. There was no public testimony heard, and no official decisions were to be made. Nevertheless, through the means of an unofficial straw poll, the board directed TriMet staff to begin the process of proposing a fare increase. Had this meeting been made during a regular TriMet board meeting, as it should have, there would certainly have been public testimony in opposition. Instead, the board was only able to consider a presentation by TriMet staff, which was heavily biased towards a fare increase, emphasizing the importance of fares and discrediting the idea of a fareless system. Eventually, of course, the community made their voices heard, and the overwhelming majority of public sentiment was in opposition to the fare increase. Thousands of people responded online, and hundreds showed up at TriMet board meetings to voice their concerns. However, the board once again chose to exclude people from the process and ignore public opinion, quite literally fleeing away from the public to carry out their business away from scrutiny and accountability. Only one board member, that being Kathy Way, had the bravery to stand up and vote no against the fare increase. I have rarely been prouder of my community nor more ashamed of our public officials. Despite overwhelming public sentiment, the board decided to move forward with their fare increase. So on January 1st, close to a year to the day that this whole process was instigated under, let's say, dubious circumstances, it will go into effect. All I want for Christmas is fareless transit. Instead, I'm getting a fare increase, one that will hit low-income people, working families, and the houseless community the hardest. TriMet claims to promote equity, accessibility, ridership, and even public input and public comment, but their decision to increase the fares was precisely contrary and will negatively affect all of the above. In closing, all I have to say is that TriMet, your clean energy initiatives better be up to snuff, because the board and the staff who are responsible for foisting this unjust decision on us will certainly be finding coal in your stockings this Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Tristan, and congrats on the board chair position. We appreciate the continued partnership in helping make our system better. Now, our final public testimony, we have Bridge Crane Johnson.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. These are very distressing days, even though we're in the middle of Hanukkah. We will, of course, stick to the issues of transit while our crazy-ass federal government cannot find a way to move towards a ceasefire. I guess of most concern to me now for over a year, this is my first time coming to you here in this venue. I know you used to meet at the World Trade Center and have offices south of the World Trade Center, and now I think your offices are almost at the World Trade Center, but we still meet here. So I'm not sure that makes you experts in logistics. However, those logistics are not as bad as the rail division or your inability to provide transparency and data. Ironically, just last night, there were probably many Orange Line Max stops that had no service for 37 or 42 minutes. So that makes it very difficult to build ridership. And a year ago, there were some problems on Thanksgiving Eve, and you loaded a bunch of people onto a green line through downtown. And then when that green line got to Gateway, you told your traditional lie of there'll be a train right behind us. And you forced all those people off of that green line at Gateway, where they waited, I don't know how long, at least 37 minutes, because it was such a distressing situation. I got a free ride to downtown from the transit police. So, as board members, you need to make sure that the administration empowers you to have the data about failures, and that you have, that the data is not massaged to hide failures, particularly in the rail division. Of course, we all know the rail division is featured in a leaked video on the internet that shows the westbound Max blowing through a no-go signal to smash into streetcar number 24. So you all are in an awkward position because, of course, you're nominally responsible for the hiring of the director of TriMet, but you're also responsible for making sure that the services that come from TriMet under that director continually improve, not just stay the bar or, as I'm reporting, get worse. Also, it would be great for you to have fluency about what jurisdictions have fareless transit and why that means you're not competent to do what those other jurisdictions have done. I know two that I visit, so let's get Mr. Pete Buttigieg to work with y'all and make sure more jurisdictions can go fareless. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridge Crane, for your testimony. And to all of those that have testified today, really appreciate you taking the time and effort to come out and share your thoughts. I'm hearing a lot of creativity and interest in a lot of the same things. We have some major issues to address, and yes, ridership is the North Star, and it implies safety, security, and accessibility, financially and otherwise. So thank you to everyone to be bringing those thoughts. We hear you. With no other members of the public signed up to testify at this time, I'll be now closing the public forum and opening the TriMet business meeting. The business meeting begins with board reports. And so I would like to first invite Director Edwards, good morning, Director Edwards, to provide an update from the latest meeting on the Committee for Accessible Transportation.
Good morning, Chair Gonzalez. Thank you very much. And I apologize for my late arrival today. As typical, we had a well-attended CAT meeting, and we had a very lively meeting as well. We were graced by the presence of our board chair at that meeting, and I know that the CAT appreciated his attendance as well as he appreciated being there and being able to hear the issues that were brought before the CAT committee. What was shared with CAT by the chair, Jan Campbell, who you heard this morning, was that we had a passing of a CAT member. And I would like to take a moment of silence for Arnold, we called him Arnie Panich. So please, I would like to have a moment of silence. Thank you. We also had problems that were related to the evacuation exercise that occurred at the Robertson Tunnel. And when I say we had issues and problems is that we didn't have enough volunteers that had disabilities. And you can simulate that and you know, try to do the best you can to show that people are acting like they have disabilities, but it's not the same. And so hopefully we'll have an opportunity to do that again so that we're prepared when the real thing does happen. Again, President Gonzalez attended the meeting, and we were very happy to have his attendance there. And I just want to say as well that going forward, we're looking forward to having at least 2 board members attend our meetings, and you will be getting invitations from the CAT chair. So please look forward to that. It's very important for, I think, all the board to be aware of issues that involve CAT, as well as being able to see the interest that is drawn by CAT with all the activities that they're involved in. We had an update on our wayfinding, and the one thing that we're really appreciative of is that there's going to be, even though the ad hoc committee is going to be disbanded, that there's going to be a fixed route subcommittee that's going to be addressing those particular issues. And so we're looking forward to that and making sure that our wayfinding is really being addressed as, I guess I should say, appropriately and properly. That includes everyone that rides TriMet. We had some issues in regards to the access that's been happening in regards to elevator access and some of the stops that have been thinned out as well. And of course, the Fixed Route Committee, which meets today, will be addressing some of those issues. TriMet has the community engagement was discussed as well. And there's going to be a shift in the approach of how we embrace those issues and address those issues. That's pretty much all I have for that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Edwards. Are there any questions or comments from the board about the CAT report? And we will bring the bylaws conversation about addressing the CAT committee here in the meeting just in a little while. So we'll hear more from CAT. Okay, thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Director Kim, who has an update from the Metro Policy Advisory Committee, known as MPAC.
Thank you. At the November MPAC meeting, Metro provided an update on the 2024 urban growth management approach to evaluate capacity for new development in the urban growth boundary. This capacity assessment and the buildable land inventory will evaluate how much land could be developed within the existing UGB. This work is closely coordinated with state goals to increase housing supply and employment land. Cities will soon be able to submit letters of interest to expand the UGB with formal proposals during the spring. Next, MPEC also received an update on the regional freight and commodities movement study. This study explored increases in e-commerce, congestion, and unreliability on the transportation system and makes recommendations for future freight policy. The study ultimately made several recommendations for how public sector agencies can address the impacts of e-commerce increase, such as how to plan for the increased need for industrial land, supporting and incentivizing fleet transition and first last mile delivery options, and improving curb access to parking management. We'll meet again tonight for continued discussion on the buildable land inventory. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kim. Are there any questions or comments about the MPAC committee report from the board? I do have one, but, pardon me. Director Frisbee, I didn't see your
I
hand
didn't know
raised
if we
behind the
did
laptop.
this for comments.
Oh, it works. It was hiding behind the laptop. I couldn't see it.
I'm also sitting right next to Director Kim, so it feels.
Director Frisbee.
I'm just interested, given the close interplay between land use issues and transit access,
Yeah.
and particularly thinking about some of the places where they're looking at expansion, if those are places that are well-suited to transit service, or if we're following down the path we have in other places where we expand in a way that does not promote good transit use, and then we get yelled at for not providing good
Yeah.
transit service. So I would guess much of the board is interested in that conversation and thinking about how we can engage. in
Yeah,
their thoughts.
my initial sentiment is the latter, but now with that said, the proposals are due in the spring. So when the proposals by the cities do come in, although we could, at board members, we could pre-funk with the city leadership as their respective, representatives. But once the official proposal is set, perhaps that could be too late. Perhaps the conversation, needs to take place right now. But right now, the cities, what's on top of their minds, as I understand, is the buildable land where housing first and then also employment. So although being able to layer in transportation would be a double whammy and really a win for all of us, I think cities are more thinking about in their urgent need first, and thinking about working out the transportation, public transportation second. But I agree. I think it would be a good idea for us board members to reach out to our cities that we represent, and to the extent that they are seeking to submit something, proposal for their UGB, we have that conversation now to see how we can layer in or choose a region, that area that would be better suited for TriMet service and other services.
Thank you, and that's a great comment, Director Frisbee, and I'd like to add on to that. We have a tremendous resource at our disposal now that has just come online in the way of our transit-oriented development website presence. It's just been expanded for those listening and interested. There's more information out there on the TOD projects that we've been doing, and in light of this UGB conversation, I think that leveraging that information to encourage some deeper conversation about how mixed use as well as housing options for all strata of society are going to be enhanced with transit infrastructure. We have some great examples now, and I encourage municipalities and certainly Metro to explore opportunities to lean into more transit-oriented development, which really does bridge the gap between land use of transit and on-site buildings.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Next, I'd like to invite Director Lewis to provide her report on this morning's Finance and Audit Committee meeting. Director Lewis?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This morning, myself and Director Gonzalez and Director Way had the opportunity to be present at the Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and just shortly, Director Gonzalez was talking about the TOD update. It is available. TOD stands for the Transit Orient Development. It is on the website. We did have a kind of an update on the goals, the benefits, and guidelines. So please take a moment at your time to check the website. We had a full agenda. Other items, Nancy Young Oliver presented the budget transfer, a little session on our budget transfer. It will be available at our next February meeting. We did have an overview of our adopted budget that's coming. We will have the proposed budget available in March. It will go on to TSCC in April for approved, and then we will have the adopted budget, the plan is, for May. Okay, hope I have that right for dates. Next, we had a wonderful reflective reflections from Alan on the business plan. Let's see, little quick notes. Give me a moment. The draft will be ready in January with the final overview in March, and it will be reflective of our Vision 2020, and we actually were able to see the strategic map. What else? And just a short update on our ATU negotiations from Nate Holton and Kim Simwell. They will start the bargaining process, and hopefully that will be ratified. The plan is summer, June. And I think that's all my notes. Very packed agenda this morning. Any questions? Oh, that's it.
Indeed.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Lewis. I see no questions or comments coming from the board. Next, I'd like to invite Director Frisbee to present a report on the Transit Equity Advisory Committee, known as TEAC. Director Frisbee?
Thank you, President Gonzalez. I had my first TIAC meeting last month, which was a delight. Amparo Augusto talked about and highlighted a lot of the recent outreach and community engagement initiatives, which in general are going very well. We're seeing significant increased attendance at a lot of these events. We're doing a better job trying to get out at the community and places and events that are already happening and being part of those rather than asking folks to come out to yet another event on a night when maybe they just want to stay at home in their pajamas. We've also got a recent 10,000 person response survey in multiple languages, multilingual materials, and we've had 16 fair registration events, which have included over 1,000 honored citizen cards and over $5,000 in donated fares, which is a nice addition to the collection jar we have here. So those are ongoing. We have events planned in early '24 for more honored citizen outreach. We've talked about that a little bit at the last board meeting with the new Veterans and Active Duty member fair. So this is an opportunity to keep making sure people are aware of that information and getting them signed up as the fare increase goes into effect. Other key items at those engagement events have been talking about the Forward Together plan and helping make sure people are aware of what's happening to the bus routes, and then continued work to try to build more relationships, partner with community organizations, use our events to help bolster attendance at their events, et cetera. So that was it was a great way to start as the new TIAC chair, get sort of that overview. And then John Gardner did what I called the TIAC greatest hits, was sort of the history of accomplishments and the way that TIAC has shaped some of the key components and things that have happened in the last couple of years. So, including talking about the reduced fare system, which TIAC was a part of, expanding the honored citizen designation, the summer pass program, which was an idea that originated from TIAC, fare capping, and the fare subsidy work group, which is currently ongoing. Also, a lot of items that have come to the board recently, including the TOD policy, which came just before I started. TIAC really helped push to have a stronger affordable housing lens in that work. So highlighting and sort of recapping, because we've got new members and a new chair on TIAC, the accomplishments and the work that they have done. And then we're also engaging in dialogue with TIAC members right now to think about, we're having some troubles with, I would say, attendance, but more like engagement. How do we really create that space as a place, not for people to just receive information, but provide information back? So we're trying to get feedback from the members about how to do that, formatting different proposals and ways to do that work. So we got.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. Any comments or questions from fellow board members? I'll take an opportunity to recognize the partnerships that have made all of that work possible. Years back, TIAC was formed for the purpose of helping build bridges between the work of the agency and so many community organizations that are interested in this work. And we have some partners in the room today. So Opal's been there, Bus Riders Unite has been represented, as well as many others. And I really appreciate the summary of highlights. And I want to thank our partners for bringing their voice, their heart, and their soul into this work. And in continuing to be an ally as we roll out these programs. The low-income fare program has continued to expand, and that's in great part thanks to our community partners. Now that we have the Honored Citizen program, that's another opportunity in the update, I should say, to continue that outreach effort. And so thank you once again. We look forward to continued partnership with you as we continue to expand knowledge and utilization of those programs. With that, all right, now that closes the report section of this, with one exception, our general manager's report. So now I'd like to turn to our general manager for his monthly performance report. General Manager Dessou, the floor is yours.
Thanks, President Gonzalez. Good morning, President Gonzalez, members of the board, our community partners that are here, TriMet staff, and the public. Thank you all for being here with us this morning. President Gonzalez, before I start my comments, I do as well want to extend our condolences, my condolences to the Cat family and to the family of Arnie. Want to extend that. As you all know, Arnie was an incredible man. We all appreciated his contributions to CAT. And you can look across our TriMet transit system, and you'll see his legacy lives on with all of us and all of his work around CAT. So we'll miss Arnie, and we'll miss all of his jokes. I've been on the receiving end of his jokes as well. And as you all know, he's quite a jokester. So I know he's smiling down on us, and we'll miss him, so I'll get to my report. So in my report this morning, I'll share some timely information addressing ridership, updating you on our most recent service change that brought more bus service to Washington County. We'll lift the curtain on efforts to spruce up our rail stations and transit centers and make them more welcoming, and then we'll provide information about our next service disruption that's going to be required for a Better Red project. I'll let you know on the work to get people signed up for reduced fare ahead of the January increase in daily fares. And then finally, I want to just take a few minutes just to give you a look back on everything that we as an agency have accomplished for our riders and for the region this year. So I'll start with ridership. I do want to note as a reminder that in October, the work on a Better Red project to rebuild the MAX station at the Portland Airport disrupted the MAX Red Line for most of the month, and we apologize for that. But still, our weekly ridership was up nearly 11% in October over October of last year. TriMet provided 5.6 million rides, and that put our ridership at about 65% of pre-pandemic levels. So speaking of ridership, I do want to give you a bit of insight into a previous question from the board on why our passenger revenue isn't increasing at the same level as our ridership. So TriMet has experienced an increase in transit assistance, our summer passes, and grant fare programs, which are reimbursed to us by STIF and STIF funds. STIF is not reported out as fare revenue. So funding from participation in our fare programs increased it by $5 million, or 184% of pre-pandemic. So that's why you're seeing the differences there, and we'll get more into that as we get into our budget, and we'll be talking with the board about that. And one last note I want to just let everyone know on ridership. At our November board retreat, we brought to the board some ideas on how to further make our system safer and improve our maintenance efforts. So staff is continuing to evaluate and cost the various options that we talked about. So in early January, I will alert the board on how we are proceeding. And then at the January board meeting, I will walk you through specifics as well as the implementation timeline on some of the comments and decisions that we talked about. Building ridership is extremely critical, and I want to just say that to the public. It's critical, and we've seen the highest rates of ridership recovery have occurred on our frequent service bus lines. And there's a new frequent service line that's running in Washington County right now. And thanks to our Forward Together service improvements developed with the community and also with board approval, we're seeing quite a bit of enthusiasm for upgrading the line 48 Cornell to frequent service. And that's running every 15 minutes or better. The line runs between Hillsborough Central Transit Center and our Beaverton Transit Center. And with the December 3rd service change, line 48 buses are arriving every 15 minutes or better for most of the day, every day. Again, when transit is fast and frequent, riders are more likely to hop on board. And that's something that's top of mind for us. We're trying to do that. So our Forward Together plan calls for improving other bus lines to frequent service. But it's dependent on staffing levels. And let me say that again. It's dependent on staffing levels. And we're challenged right now. We're challenged with hiring new operators. And we're working very hard to retain the operators that we have currently now. But until we can increase our numbers in the operator ranks, expanding and improving services will be affected. But we're working right now to get more people to come work for us at TriMet. So I'm going to ask the public, please help us. Anyone that you know that can come and drive for us or work on our trains or buses, please send them because we need them. And our goal, we want to increase service. We want to put more service out there so that we can serve the public. That's why we're here. Riders are returning to our MAG stations and our transit centers. They're noticing a transformation as we work to keep our system as welcoming as possible. And I want to introduce some staff that's going to be presenting this morning on deep cleaning and sprucing up efforts that's underway right now. So joining us, we have two of our directors, Jamie Snook of Major Projects and Jeremy Rayfelt of our Facilities Maintenance, along with Liz Higgins. She's a Senior Project Manager with our Engineering and Construction. I'm very proud of the work that has been going on here, and this is something that will be ongoing. So I'll turn it over to you guys to let the board know. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there? Oh, okay. I'll go ahead and just get us started while it's loading. Thank you. Thank you for having us here today. We're really pleased and happy to provide an update on what we've been doing. So if you've been out on the system, you may have seen some changes. We're really excited about the changes that we've been making. It is.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
I just want to make sure so our online community can hear.
Thank you. As I was saying, if you've been out on the system, you may have seen some changes. We're really excited about this. We've been working really hard to refresh our system to get more people on the system and for our existing riders. As people are returning to work, as new riders are coming onto the system, as visitors and the holiday season is upon us, it's really important that people have a positive experience on our system. And so we're really excited about what we've been doing to make that happen. Next slide, please. So we have limited resources, so we really had to prioritize where we were going to focus our efforts to start. And we really looked at where there are multiple lines, where we saw the greatest need, where we saw the most riders, and where we could partner with our other partners like the Portland Mall Management, Inc. And so we've developed a list of priority stations that we've started this process with, and we're really excited to see how it's performing and how people are responding to it. Next slide. I'm going to hand it over to Liz.
Thank you. As Jamie mentioned, COVID coupled with reduced resources left many of the station elements in need of extra maintenance and attention. You can see on this slide there were equipment remnants from past TVM removal projects, broken tactile pavers, rusted trash cans, worn ground markings, and certain higher trafficked stations required really deep cleaning on the ground plane and the pavement. Next slide, please. In addition, we also identified uneven surfaces, potential tripping hazards, and elements out on the platform that were receiving a lot of graffiti. We also identified a lot of tree wells that needed repair, empty tree wells, and signage that was tired and fading. And so what we did is, at the end of the summer, we formed a team that engaged individuals from across the agency. While the bulk of the work falls with facilities maintenance and MOW, the effort really had a broad reach throughout the agency, as indicated on this slide. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy to dive a little bit deeper into the work that we did.
Good morning. With safety being the #1 priority, all of the working groups began to repair or replace safety-sensitive items. Here you can see the replacement of worn signage and new pavement markings. Next slide, please. Another key was the removal of the old ticket vending machine bases, which we replaced with a small ground vault, reducing all tripping hazards. Next slide, please. Here, you can see the deep cleaning of stations and platforms. Next slide, please. One project that we all wanted to see completed was the station platform roofs. This took extensive coordination between facilities maintenance, maintenance away, and the operation control center. This work took many weeks and was completed outside of revenue service. Next slide, please. Here you can see the newly formed clean team in action. The clean team is dedicated to litter collection in the right-of-way and platform adjacent. Next slide, please. Some of the other items we have been working on include the removal of outdated and non-serviceable payphones. As a temporary mitigation, we have placed bollards in their place until the emergency blue light phones can be permanently installed. The blue light phones will tie directly into TriMet's Security Operations Center, where staff will triage the situation. We have also been cleaning and refurbishing public art. Next slide, please. And here at Gateway Transit Center, we've replaced damaged bus shelters, upgraded the lighting, refurbished the trash cans, repaired many slips, trips, and fall hazards, along with many other repairs. I'm going to pass it back to Liz, who will.
Thank you, Jeremy. So what's next? As Jeremy mentioned, in the short term, we have an in-depth focus at Gateway Transit Center, which is underway. It's also including painting, paving repair, signage replacement, and ballast cleaning. And in the longer term, we will continue to improve the customer experience across the system. Thank you.
And I'm going to close us out with a big thanks to everyone involved. I love this slide. It's my favorite slide that I think I've ever had in any presentation. It just really shows the extent to all the people involved. I want to say a big thanks to the leadership to support and encourage us to get this work done. It's been extremely fascinating and a lot of hard work, and dedicated staff put a lot of time and effort into this work, and I'm just really proud, and I just want to say a big thanks.
Thank you, Jamie, Jeremy, Liz. Really appreciate the update. Want to echo your thanks also to everyone that was involved in the efforts. It's very extensive, and also it takes a village, and that's something that I've always said there. So everybody should know how welcome their work is and appreciate it. So really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
And General Manager Dessou, if it's all right, I see some board members are chomping at the bit. They
Okay.
want to share some thoughts. I'd love to let them. Director Edwards.
Thank you very much, Chairman Gonzalez. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a question on slide 6, and you know where I'm going to come from, because I try to look at things through a disability lens. On that slide, that particular slide, you have signage there that says look both ways. It says stop here. But if I'm sight impaired, how do I know that how do I know to stop there? How do I know to not go either way before I put myself in harm's way.
So definitely with the stop here, if you look directly in front of them, there is actually a tactile strip which is meant for the visually impaired to let them know to stop and before proceeding. The look both ways, I will have to look into this and get you an answer.
Okay.
Can I chime in here to Director Edwards? One of the things that we are ramping up to do, we're going to do a full accessibility assessment of our system across the board. Not only just at that location regarding wayfinding, we've got to look across the system, and it's something that will be a goal of mine to the board to have this done and have it reviewed. So
Thank
it's
you.
coming.
Thank you very much. And my only ask would be that someone from CAT can be an advisory to participate in that as well.
Thank you. And while we're interrupting, Director Wei has a comment as well.
Great. Thank you for sticking around for some of our questions. Can we just, I think it's slide 2 or 3 where there was a list of the places that the team has identified to prioritize. Yeah, this is great. So I'm just curious, because I think a lot of this is the downtown area, Southwest, which, you know, I think is great. I think we want to continue to present ourselves as, you know, a welcoming city, and particularly for, you know, folks who are coming, right, and visiting. But I'm also curious because I think one of you mentioned that you also chose stations based on the usage and like ridership, and so 82nd Avenue, like I'm just think like number 1 through, you know, some of the other ones that I also feel like are very much frequently used. Why aren't those also being prioritized? Or is this just a very special project to focus on, I don't know, the specific repairs and improvements that are needed?
Thank you. Great question. You know, we have very limited resources that we're working with, and so we had to start somewhere. And so this was where we prioritized to start the process. We anticipate that this is not the end of the work that we're going to be doing.
Great, awesome. And I know you're doing the assessment, you're doing the initial look through, but would it be possible 6 months from now to see visually, you know, just how things are really improving and shaping up in the areas that you've highlighted? I think that would be helpful for us. Okay. Thank you.
I would like to just add to the comment. We started off on the rail side, and if you think about the oldest operating line, it's our blue line. So we opened it in 1986, and our goal is to go back and take a look at it and update some of the things and really clean up. But the goal is to go system-wide to be able to provide the resources. So part of Vision 2030 is to go and look at the system in its entirety, and there will be funding that I'll be coming to the board and talking about to be able to address some of the issues that you're bringing forward.
I see Director Lewis also has some thoughts to share.
Question for the group. How does our community know or receive information that the stations are being cleaned? Is there any feedback? Have you heard any feedback? Is there a way to get a loop back of negative but positive of, oh, they are cleaning, taking care of a lot of the deferred things in the stations? Is some of the photos on our webpage?
I know we have done a media blast with Roberta's team. We have also received feedback through our SIP program. It's where customers can provide feedback, complaints, positives to TriMet. I have seen a couple of them there, especially regarding the work that has been done at Gateway to date.
I'll just add also, our communications team is putting information out daily about what's taking place. We just released a video to the public, informing them of some of the things that we're doing out there and what we're going to continue to be doing. So So our communications team is definitely on top of it.
Okay, because I'm on your Facebook page, and of course, we see pros and cons, but it would be good to see some of these photos, especially on Facebook.
Director Frisbee.
I just wanted to say thank you to the team. I've seen the impact of this in a couple places. It really makes a difference. It makes the space feel more comfortable, more inviting. So thank you. I'm really excited to see the 82nd spot on there. That for such a heavily used site, both there's, I think, serious safety concerns so close to such a fast-moving street, and so really look forward to seeing some of those improvements. But want to say thank you for the work you've already done. It has been on the grams, Director Lewis, which I think is targeted at my generation. It's a very small section because I think younger than me, they have TikTok, and older than me, so, you know, those of us geriatric millennials appreciate the gram. The Gramming, but thank you for your work. It really does matter.
Thank you.
And I can't resist to just emphasize that it takes a village. This is the blocking and tackling of public service, and the pictures speak volumes. And I'm glad to hear that we're not just raising the bar in one area, but we're really raising the bar across the system over time. And to emphasize the slide with all of the names, it really does take a village, and we have a lot of work left to do, and we're hiring. So join the team and help us raise the bar across the system. And with that, I'd say please continue.
Thank you, guys. So I want to turn to a Better Ed project, give you a little bit of an update. This project is about 85% completed. And I know in January, you're going to get an opportunity to go out and see some of the fruits of the work, and also be able to take a look at the station and the upgrades that we're doing there. But we've hit some really excellent milestones, and we're right on track to complete this project on time in 2024. So something that's coming. However, we do have another big service disruption, and I've heard from the public, you know, about these disruptions that are taking place, and that's coming up. It's needed to allow our crews the time and space necessary to conduct work. If you remember, our last disruption was 126 days, and that was the longest disruption. This upcoming one will probably be the most disruptive for our riders because it starts Sunday, January 14th, and it goes through Sunday, February 25th, and it's going to require shutting down the Gateway Transit Center in order to do this work. And again, I want to go back and make sure that the public hear this. If you think about a system that was built in 1986, and no work has been done to those tracks and ties out there, so safety-wise, we've got to replace them, so we have to shut down to be able to do that. So we apologize. It's going to be significant, but our communication teams and our outreach teams are going to get out there beginning today, and they'll start informing people about what's going to take place. And we want to make sure that all affected riders are aware of it. Communications will start now, and it'll go through the disruption that's coming. So turning to fare, for months we've been going out with our communities and talking with people about our honored citizen reduced fare and how to sign up and start saving on their transit costs. We've been holding educational pop-ups. With these events, we go out and meet the riders where they are, and we do it with staff and partners who speak their language as well. And these scheduled events are on our communication channels. We're reminding riders that some fares are increasing on January 1st, but we're also reminding riders that if they use HOP and ride frequently, their costs will not change. So since our monthly caps and our past costs will remain the same. So for riders using Honored Citizen reduced fare HOP card, that means that unlimited rides for just $28 a month after 10 days of riding following the fare increase. So more information will be coming. We're going to get information out on our channels. We're going to have outreach out at different locations, talking to people. So just public, look forward to that. And then finally, as the year winds down, this is our last board meeting for calendar year 2023. And I would just like to provide a look back on some of what we've accomplished this year. And when I say what we've accomplished, I mean all of us, from the board to our executive team, to our leadership teams, and to the more than 3,100 employees that work here at TriMet, which makes TriMet a driving force for our riders and our customers. Really appreciate what you guys have done in 2023. So let's play the video, let people see.
Better bus service, new MAX trains, more riders, and a growing workforce. In 2023, TriMet is how life moves. More than 1,000 people came out on a Sunday in October to check out our newest MAX train. You'll be riding these new trains, the Type 6, by early next year. With their arrival, we bid farewell to our faithful Type 1s, some that have traveled 2 million miles since 1986. Our light rail system will soon perform better thanks to a better red. The project, now more than 80% complete, has a remodeled MAX station at PDX with a new one under construction near Gateway Transit Center. Once complete, a better red will improve reliability on every MAX line and extend the red line to Hillsborough. 2023 and our Forward Together service plan added more buses and more times to help you reach more places. We rolled out more frequent service bus lines and improved bus service throughout the day and on weekends, and there's more on the way. We grew our team, bringing more people on board to keep you moving safely. We're grateful for them every day of the year, and we rolled out a special show of support on Transit Driver Appreciation Day in March. It's getting better on board, with more of you returning to transit as we've added more security personnel as well. We've more than doubled our security staff since the start of 2022, and you now have more ways to connect with our security support team 24/7. Our first FX, Frequent Express line, is living up to its name. FX2 Division celebrated 1 year of service. It's faster, easier, saves time, and it brought 40% more people on board. We expanded our Honored Citizen Reduced Fare program so that now even more people qualify. Sign up to ride as much as you'd like for a fraction of the cost based on military service, income, age, or disability. We're helping transform underused properties into community spaces just steps from transit. From a flagship library under construction in East County to Hollywood Hub, a vibrant, affordable housing mixed-use development. We continue celebrating the diversity of our riders, employees, and communities. Our 2023 collection of buses honoring cultural heritage featured local artists who created moving murals. And this year, we added work of artists with intellectual or developmental disabilities to some of our Lyft paratransit buses. At TriMet, we are dedicated to connecting people with opportunities and bringing communities closer together. Throughout 2023, we've been honored to join your celebrations and share the love of transit. We look forward to more fun in the coming year. See you on board.
Yay. Those raps are gorgeous.
So President Gonzalez, a member of the board, I want to just thank each of you for your leadership this year. Also, I want to thank our employees and also the public for a significant 2023, a welcome sign of recovery as we move forward and renewal coming out of the pandemic. As we look back on 2023, we're also looking ahead. And I want to speak directly to the board and to the public that we need you. We need you as we move forward so that we all can work together and make Portland the best transit city in the United States. So let's do that. Let's make sure we do that. We are planning to increase our ridership in the coming years. We're looking at putting frequent service, but recruitment and retention is where we've got to get there, and we've got to get people here, as some of the people that stated, to put more service out there on the street. We'll be back with you early next year on our Evolve and Vision 2030 plan, and I just want to let you know my sincere appreciation for you. Happy holidays, and this concludes my report.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. What a nice reflection on 2023. And it's beautiful to see our system reflecting our community's creativity in that way. Do we have any comments, questions from the board before we move forward with the business of the day? All right, we have a lot of it, so stay tuned. We're going to begin by turning to the consent agenda. As in the past, items appearing on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be approved by the board in one blanket motion. And this morning, the consent agenda includes no less than 6 items. We have approving the minutes from our last meeting of October 25th, a resolution directing that the reading of all ordinances be by title only, and we have 4 resolutions. We have Resolution 23-12-56, authorizing a contract modification with TH Builders Corp. For on-call building and site maintenance and repairs. We also have Resolution number 23-12-57, authorizing contracts with Aramark Uniform Services and UniFirst Corporation for maintenance of uniform rental and laundry services. We have Resolution 23-12-58, authorizing a contract modification with EC Electric to increase funds for on-call general electric equipment installation services. And we have Resolution number 23-12-59, authorizing a contract modification with Team Electric to also increase funds for on-call general electric equipment installation services. Does any director wish to have any item removed from the consent agenda?
Motion to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you, Director Edwards. We have a motion to approve the items contained in the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Way. It has been moved and seconded. All of those in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Now, we will move to the remaining resolutions, and we have no less than 10.
And an ordinance.
So the next resolution coming before the board this morning is Resolution number 23-12-60, appointing members to the 2024-25 House Bill 2017 Transit Advisory Committee. Mr. General Manager, do you have any comments about this resolution?
Thanks, President Gonzalez, members of the board. This resolution asks the board to confirm appointments to the HB 2017 Transit Advisory Committee for calendar years 2024 and 2025. The board is required to take this action under Oregon law, as the Transit Advisory Committee helps develop a plan for projects and programs funded by HB 2017, also known as Keep Oregon Moving. Advisory committee members are appointed for 2-year terms with the opportunity to be reappointed for 3 additional terms for up to 8 years of volunteer service. The resolution before you this morning requests authorization for the reappointment of 17 members of the committee and the initial appointment of 8 new members. The proposed members represent a broad range of interests, perspectives, racial and cultural backgrounds, while also providing representation from each board member's sub-districts. I have Director of Mobility and Planning Policy, Tom Mills, here with additional details. Tom.
Good morning, and thank you, President Gonzalez and Board of Directors. I appreciate you having me this morning. If we can go to the next slide. So the HB 2017 Transit Advisory Committee is the committee that advises TriMet on our STIF plan. You've probably heard the acronym STIF. It stands for Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. It was part of the HB 2017 legislation, Keep Oregon Moving Act. And essentially, it was a payroll tax of 1/10% imposed on all employee payroll, all employees across the state. Within our jurisdiction, within the TriMet area, we receive 90% of that funding that is paid. In 2026 and 2027, we expect to receive $69.6 million and $72.9 million. This is a growth over the prior biennium. We will be working on the plan for FY 26-27. So that wouldn't go into effect for another year and a half, but it takes about a year to submit the plan. The plan includes, as you can see on this list here, fare mitigation. That is our low-income fare program. That's the current plan today, includes the low-income fare program. Funding for student fares who come from families that earn low incomes, service expansion, including the expansion of facilities to allow for that service expansion, zero emission bus investments. That includes both buying buses as well as the charging infrastructure. Transit priority, those are those red bus lanes you see across the city. Bus stop amenities and ADA improvements. The bus stop amenities also include glass replacement, cleaning efforts, bus shelter replacements, etc. Transportation for older adults and people with disabilities, and finally, the first last mile shuttles, as well as a small amount of money we give to other jurisdictions to run into the TriMet service area. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, we are required by the legislation to submit a plan every 2 years to say how we plan to use those funds, and that plan should be vetted through an advisory committee, and the board of directors must appoint that advisory committee every 2 years. Some of those will be reappointments, and some of those will be new members. We are required to include 4 groups of people, or have people who represent 4 groups of people, but we go beyond that. You can see here low-income individuals, representing individuals aged 65 and older, someone representing people with disabilities, and a representative for public service transportation service providers, both inside the district and outside the district. And the reason for that is that the plan also includes the plans for areas outside TriMet, but within the 3 counties. Next slide. For those of you who are on the board a couple years ago, you did make some changes to the bylaws. One of the big ones was having 1 representative from each board member district on the committee, so you will see that on the list now, as well as the term limits that Sam had mentioned. And also noting that members on the committee who are on the committee by virtue of their elected position or organizational affiliation only remain on the committee as long as they are in office or with that organization. And then the same conflict of interest language that you currently have for yourselves. And then it's a 2-page list. You can see here, I have it alphabetical. You can see the broad range of folks and organizations that they are representing. You can also see that we've done a pretty good job, I think, of staggering the terms. So, when people leave, there's still a good number of people who have continuity from the last time we went through the process. So I feel like there's a good amount of experience on the committee, along with 8 new representatives. And then one more slide. So should you approve this resolution, the next steps will be that the committee will begin meeting in January to start their work on the plan. Throughout 2024, we will come back to you to kind of give you updates on what is intended to be in the plan. And then sometime between October and December, depending on how well the process goes, we'll be coming to you asking you to approve the plan. And then finally, the plan is submitted to ODOT in January of 2025. In actuality, we have to take what you approve and we have to put it into essentially an application, which at times has been as many as 400 pages long. So it's a lot of work to get that together. But then the committee continues to meet in 2025 because they are 2-year appointments, and by the legislation requires them to meet twice a year. So in 2025, there'll still be some business to do, and then their committee term will end in December of 25, and I will be back to you with a new list.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. I've got a question. As you mentioned in the presentation, there's the members that are identified hold that seat so long as they remain with the organizations or agencies that they're representing. What is the mechanism that takes place should somebody leave the school district or no longer be in that agency that they represent? Do they identify their replacement, or do they bring that information and we select somebody from that agency?
So in the past, it's been a little informal, and this time around, I've really tried to be more formal. So I have asked the members on this list to identify, before we even get started, who their alternates are, so that there isn't any last minute, hey, I can't be there, but so-and-so is going to take my place. So when somebody leaves, there will be an alternate who can take their place.
That's good. Thank you. And wonderful. Oh, pardon me. Director Kim.
Thank you for this list. I see that these were what we've intended. Well, I see that this is a great reflection of the bylaws update, and I see it very diversified committee appointments, their names, organizations. And I do recognize a public testimony this morning. There was an organization that did articulate their wish to be a part of this, but because I see this very diversified organizations and regions, I believe the intent of this statewide transportation improvement program will be well served. And of course, just because anyone is not on this list doesn't mean their voice is not heard. In fact, they could work with organizations on this as well as regional representative. So I did want to say that, and thank you to your team.
Thank you.
And Director Frisbee?
Last quick request. I really appreciate this list, and Director Kim's point. I think there's strong representation from people who use the system and engage with the system across the region. I see some community leaders out here on this who's I haven't heard from in a little bit, and it's fun. It's comforting to know that they're working with your team and engaging in this work. So is it possible to provide contact information to directors, particularly for the folks who are serving to represent specific districts? I know I would love to check in and just make sure we're engaging and being supportive of their work.
Absolutely. We'll do that.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone on this team who is signing up for an exciting and fun time.
That's right. Thanks.
Exciting and fun indeed. I see no other comments. Oh, Director Lewis.
A quick question. Those that are coming on for their first term, do they receive an orientation? Do they have, okay, so there is a process to bring them up to speed, some historical, and then of course the bylaws, which are coming up later.
Yes, they do receive an orientation. I meet with them, make sure they understand what they're getting themselves into, but also give them an orientation of the type of work we do, how often we meet, and make sure they're familiar with the plan and what we've done in the past.
Are we at a point where this committee is meeting in person?
You know, that's a great question. That's going to be one of the first questions. So I haven't posed that question to them yet because I've been waiting for this moment, hopefully with the approval of the resolution. Assuming that the resolution gets approved, that will be one of the first questions I will have for them. I will point out that we have people coming from as far away as Forest Grove and people as far away as Gresham. And so my sense is in the past that since we've gone online, they've kind of preferred to stay online because it is such a long trip for some people. It could be hybrid, it could be some in person, some online. I'll be working with them to determine what's best for them.
Thank you. For what it's worth, while I understand the flexibility and convenience of an online and a hybrid model, I'd simply love to emphasize collaboration takes place best when we're able to get to know each other past the agenda business. Any opportunity to interact in person, whether it's to conduct the business or simply to get to know each other as humans, will only help us lean into this work. I encourage the committee to consider opportunities to gather in some format or another to strengthen the work as it takes place. It works for us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's see here. So if there's no other comments, oh, you do have a comment, pardon me.
Just want to conclude, your approval will have no direct budgetary impact. However, the approval of the advisory committee is necessary for TriMet to receive funding from the state legislature's HB 2017 program, and I recommend your approval.
With that, is there a motion? Thank you, Director Edwards. Is there a second? Thank you, Director Lewis. It has been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make a comment before we vote? All right, seeing none, all of those in favor of approving resolution number 2312-60, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, this motion carries. And I'll get used to my gavel again. Here we go. All right. Next, thank you for the presentation, Tom. Next this morning, this board will consider resolution number 23-12-61, approving TriMet's updated agency safety plan. As a reminder, it was in our last board meeting, something in the order of 2 months ago, where we provided the safety plan information to the board, and we've been talking about this for some time now, and we will be having some presentation on this. So we'll go ahead and kick it off with you, General Manager. Do you have any comments on this resolution?
Thanks, President Gonzalez, members of the board. The Federal Transit Administration requires board review and approval of TriMet's updated agency safety plan by December 31st of each year. Fulfillment of this requirement renews our commitment to safety and allows TriMet to receive Federal Transit Administration funds. The safety activities that are outlined in the 2023 agency safety plan are integrated into TriMet's day-to-day operations and budgetary decisions. Our safety plan, which has been thoroughly reviewed by myself, our Chief Operating Officer, Bonnie Todd, and all of the safety-sensitive executive team members, includes all of the elements required by the FTA, plus a checklist of items that were identified during the review process. The updated agency safety plan was published on TriMet.org and provided to each board member for review in October. And your approval is recommended.
Thank you. And I've noticed with such a timely and important resolution that our director is not in the room. Where is he, if you might please share that?
Yes, so our Chief Safety Officer, Andrew Wilson, he is in New York City having a conversation with the New York MTA currently on things that we are doing here in Portland, Oregon, and also on a panel with law enforcement across the East Coast as well. So he has represented us very well on some of the things that we have put in place during the Reimagine and he's absolutely informing them and providing information to them.
Thank you. It looks like there's momentum building on this work, and clearly people are watching. So please continue. Thank you.
So Craig is here just to answer any questions. Here, no presentations. The document has been online. We've talked about this at our retreat, just as well as in October. It's been there, so we're looking forward to your approval.
Thank you. All right. I thought there was going to be something, but I appreciate you being here. I'll open it up to the board. Are there any comments or questions regarding the safety plan today? I have a question. Much like we just heard on the maintenance, and as has been emphasized in the general manager's report, that we need folks, we need bodies and human energy to make this work possible. Is there anything within our safety plan that you feel is worth sharing to the public, and the role that they will serve either directly by joining our team or indirectly by bringing this plan to life?
Oh, thank you, President Gonzalez. Yes, the agency safety plan is a living document, and every year, the completion of it by your approval brings us back into another series of improvements over the next year. Well, it does reach out to every aspect of safety for the public, general public safety, and safety of our current employees too. And so it's a living document that improves every year to capture everything that we need to keep the general public and our employees safe.
Thank you. And in that similar vein, anything to say to our jurisdictional partners and our folks that are in safety within our region?
It's an open book. We're always available for any questions or any recommendations to push safety forward. Anything that I'm always available for comments. Like I said, the ASP is a living document, and every year, starting in January, we're going to start the process all over again. And so any improvements that people want to bring to the table, or if they see anything missing, or any way that they could improve safety among our system, we're more than welcome to take those into consideration for the next ASP.
Thank you very much. I'll simply add to that and emphasize that, this living document comes to life best when we are all doing our part, and safety is something we collectively own, and it's best served when the public at large embraces their role in being eyes and ears as well on the system. And I encourage our jurisdictional partners, the cities and counties that are within our region, to lean into this work and review our safety plan, collaborate with us. We have tremendous potential in working together to really increase the safety, not just on the system itself, but in all of the spaces that our system passes through. So I thank Andrew, I thank you and the team for all the work that's been happening. From the days of reimagining to today, it's remarkable to see how much the conversation has shifted and how much folks are now looking differently at the idea of what safety means. So I really appreciate that work, some really good human talent coming into this work right now. Director Edwards, I see you would like to share some thoughts.
Thank you, Chair Gonzalez, and thank you very much for the information that's being shared today. My question, I guess, is we have periodic meetings that it kind of peaked when Chairman Gonzalez mentioned it. Do we have periodic meetings, just regular periodic meetings with those that are associated with TriMet in regards to the government agencies or the law enforcement agencies as well, especially when something may be going on that the public is not aware of?
We don't have any outward, we don't work directly with the general public in the agency safety plan. We do have safety committees within the agency that bring all this information up to us. So we have workplace safety committees, we have the BIL safety committee, we have myriad, every department within our our agency is represented by a safety committee. And they develop and they review and they participate in the development of the ASP.
I guess maybe I didn't articulate well, but do we have regular meetings, not only internally but externally as well? That's my question. Such as Multnomah County, such as the state of Oregon, such as Washington County or Clackamas County.
The agency safety plan is mainly focused on the internal workings of TriMet. So we don't have an outside influence from the different participating agencies.
I just want to chime in. If I understand your question correctly, the collaboration with safety being our highest core value, we collaborate with every municipality in this region, first and foremost. Also our connection with the state oversight. So ODOT, safety oversight, all of the jurisdictions that we operate in, we have conversations with them about safety because it's our core value at the organization. So hopefully that answers your question there.
That does answer it in general, but I guess my concern is, like I say, there would be just a regularly scheduled meeting, maybe quarterly or maybe every 6 months or something, so that we're abreast of everything that's going on around us that may impact us.
I would imagine with the various committees in the safety area, we got emergency management that works directly with our municipalities, which we just brought this on to be able to coordinate anything that's going on, period. And I would imagine that pretty much every day we're having conversations within the organization with someone around one of the municipalities and counties that we serve in.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll briefly add to that. If I understand correctly, Director Edwards is recognizing the importance of this topic and the high level of interest beyond our agency to make sure that we are abreast of all this work. I simply want to emphasize this core value is not just something we have within the agency. We hear it day in and day out in the public. It's of tremendous importance. And between the work we've done in cleanliness and the work we're doing with safety, I think we have some fantastic information to communicate out to the public and to our jurisdictional partners. At a time when revitalizing downtown is of top of mind, from the governor's office to our mayor in Portland to increasing ridership. This story has a lot of benefit in being told, even not just in the rearview mirror, but in what we're trying to do moving forward, and the fact that we are hiring. I can't say that enough. And I want to thank you for giving us the ample time to review this important document. I'd like to now open it up to see if there is a motion to approve Resolution 2312-61. Director Edwards has motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
I heard a lot of enthusiasm coming from this side, but I did hear Director Kim second that motion. We've got this coffee's extra strong today. It has been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make a comment or raise questions before we vote? Okay. With that, all of those in favor of approving Resolution 23-12-61, please do so by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing none. Any abstentions? I think I hear enough ayes. Okay. No abstentions. With that, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, pardon me. Andrew's off and, traveling the country being a rock star. We didn't get a chance to allow you to introduce yourself.
Oh.
Would you please introduce yourself to us?
Craig McDonald, I'm the Director of Safety Systems and Environmental Services. So
Craig,
I'm Andrew's shadow.
Craig, it's very nice to have you here today. Thank you for coming and sitting before us as we discuss this topic. And great work to you and Andrew. We look forward to more.
Thank you, and I appreciate your approval. Thank you.
Of course. Okay. Next, this morning, the board will consider Resolution number 23-12-62, authorizing TriMet to acquire by purchase or eminent domain certain real property interests necessary for the construction of the Park Avenue Park and Ride Garage project. Mr. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
Thank you, President Gonzalez and members of the board. Construction to add 2 floors to Park Avenue Park and Ride at the southern terminus of our MAX Orange Line is expected to begin next year. As you remember, the 2 additional floors were deferred during the construction of the light rail line. We received FTA approval to use the savings from the Orange Line project to move forward on adding the floors. In order to construct and operate the project, TriMet needs to acquire a temporary construction easement located on the property of the neighboring Portland, Milwaukee Elks Lodge. The board declared the temporary easement necessary with a resolution passed in June. After obtaining a fair market appraisal, TriMet made a formal offer to the property owner in June, but to date, negotiations have not been successful. To keep the project moving forward, we request board authorization to obtain the property that is needed on a temporary basis for construction staging. By law, the condemnation process protects the property owner and the public body engaged in the acquisition process. We remain hopeful that the property can be acquired by purchase through negotiations. However, given the timeline, staff recommends the condemnation process should get started. Acquisition of the construction easement is included in the project's budget. Your approval of the resolution is recommended.
Is there a motion to approve Resolution 23-12-62?
So moved, Kim.
Thank you, Director Kim. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. It has been moved and seconded. Now, does anyone wish to make comments or raise questions before we go and vote? Yes, Director Frisbee.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? We have been leasing, or prior to the pandemic, we were leasing this property for parking services anyways, correct?
Correct, yeah. So I'm Lance Ers, I'm the Director of Real Estate and Transit-Oriented Development at TriMet. Yeah, Director Frisbee, we did lease this same lot for several years for parking. This parking garage was full on a consistent basis, and there was overflow parking, so we leased this lot for several years. That lease is concluded. Basically, I think shortly into the pandemic, we didn't renew it because we didn't need it at the time.
Okay, I see no other questions from the board. So now we will move to a vote. All of those in favor of approving Resolution 23-12-62, please do so now by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done, Lance. Now, moving right along, we will now consider Resolution 23-12-63, authorizing a lease with American Assets Trust LP for the TriMet Lift Mobility Center at 710 Northeast Holiday Street. General Manager, your comments.
Thanks, President Gonzalez, members of the board. Our Lyft Paratransit service provides vital transportation to people who are unable to access TriMet's fixed route buses and trains. In order to ride Lyft, you must first pre-qualify. The process includes a written application, in-person interview, physical, and in some cases, a cognitive assessment. The physical assessment includes a walkthrough of a mobility course that is laid out inside of TriMet's Mobility Center. The Mobility Center has been located in Old Town at Northwest 5th and Davis since 2010. With the lease for the building there expiring in 2025, we began to look for alternative sites that are centrally located on a level ground and in very close proximity to transit, preferably on the east side. Not only do a majority of our Lyft applicants lived east of the Willamette River, We wanted a facility that was easier to access, especially for those who must travel by car to the facility for mobility assessments and interviews. Of the 8 properties identified, TriMet found 2 to be suitable and settled on the facility at 710 Northwest Holiday Street. The total cost of the lease is expected to be $3.5 million over almost a 12-year term. The lease is included in TriMet's zero-base budget for lease facilities and includes 7 months of rent abatement as well. We would like to have the new mobility center up and running as soon as July 1st, 2024. This will free up the Northwest Davis location, and while it's still under lease, we can use that as a hub for a downtown precinct for our safety and security groups. Your approval is recommended.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 23-12-63?
Moved.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Edwards. It has been moved and seconded. Now, does anyone wish to make comments or raise questions before we go to a vote? Well, first, good morning, Eileen.
Good morning, President Gonzalez.
Thank you for laying the background for this. And I was primarily interested in making sure we weren't just going to leave the current location empty and fallow. Sure. It sounds like we have some ideas there. So I look forward to what this will be able to accomplish. And since this is a first-time lease, how does this impact the public as far as, I understand it's a new location. Will we have improved capacity, improved functionality in this new facility? Are we, is it the same size footprint? Can you just help us understand how that is being changed as well?
It's almost like we planted that question with you. We actually no, we didn't at all. It's perfect timing. We are really excited that it's actually a smaller footprint, which helps us eliminate some cost, but it's a better organized footprint. So we are really excited to be launching a travel training program out of this location that will be germane to any rider of TriMet who wants to learn how to better access and navigate the system. So we have a whole corner of the facility that's really designed for getting our riders connected to the technology that they would need to plan a trip. So whether it's referral to low-cost phones, low-cost internet, low-cost computers, and then training them how to use the TriMet trip planner, and then actually getting out on the system with them and helping them learn how to navigate safely on the system. So that will be an addition to this location. And with flat boarding to the MAX system right outside this building, and streetcar runs the opposite direction. We're really excited that not only is there parking spaces for riders who may have someone traveling with them, but we have places that we can safely stop lift buses to bring riders there, and then really get closer to that Vision 2030 goal of increasing ridership, because we're training people how to do it so safely and successfully. So it's really exciting for us.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. I couldn't have anticipated a better answer. That's very exciting. And in light of such interest from the public and in increasing our service to the public, I would highly encourage us to leverage this opportunity when we're ready and come online to invite the CAT committee, to invite TIAC, some of our community partners, to not only know about the facility, but to help us get the word out and encourage folks to come and benefit from this new expanded functionality.
Absolutely.
Very exciting. And will your office be there?
We're still trying to figure out if we'd like to be there. I have a very small team. We'd like to be there and be present and watch as these programs develop and evolve. It's really exciting to be, I think, at the heart of so many changes. So.
This is fantastic. And I'll encourage the opportunity to have members of the board to come see the facility. I'm very curious as to how the evaluation process goes, and I like more functionality and smaller footprint as well.
We would love to have you there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's see here. With that, I think it's time we move into a vote. All of those in favor of approving Resolution 23-12- 63, please do so now by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Very exciting. All right. Next, we have resolution number 23-12-64, approving an update to HR Policy 4.4 regarding criminal background checks for subject individuals. Mr. General Manager, your comments, please.
Thanks, President Gonzalez, members of the board. This resolution seeks an amendment to TriMet's criminal records background check policy, and it's going to give our Lyft customers the option to use Uber and Lyft as a supplement to the service they receive from TriMet Lyft. Oregon law requires TriMet to conduct criminal record background checks of subject individuals who operate motor vehicles for TriMet, transport passengers, and have access to safety-sensitive facilities or information. TriMet has the authority to define subject individuals. And in this case here, the agency has defined them in HR Policy 4.4 to be job applicants and employees who operate vehicles, transport passengers, including those who are under contract to provide Lyft paratransit services or have access to critical infrastructure or sensitive facilities or information. TriMet conducts criminal record checks on these individuals to determine their fitness for placement as our employees and contractors. HR Policy 4.4 requires fingerprints as part of the criminal background check. For example, Lyft relies on our contractor, TransDev, to provide paratransit services, and all current TransDev operators and subcontractors have passed a fingerprint-based criminal background check. TriMet continues to struggle to provide adequate Lyft paratransit services, given ongoing labor and vehicle shortages and other challenges presented since the pandemic. We would like to offer our Lyft riders more options by granting them the opportunity to obtain paratransit rides from drivers associated with a transportation mobility network such as Uber or Lyft. Adding these options will expand the transit choice available to our Lyft customers and help TriMet Lyft provide better service and avoid the poor on-time performance issues that have been brought forward in past board meetings. Currently, all Uber and Lyft drivers in the TriMet Service District must complete a criminal background check pursuant to Portland City Code. Despite requiring annual updated electronic criminal records checks and a cross-check with the National Sex Offender Registry, the city code does not include fingerprinting, which is consistent with other jurisdictions in which transportation network companies operate. The resolution before you would amend TriMet's HR Policy 4.4 to exclude the fingerprint requirement for background checks for TNC subcontractors and service to TriMet Lyft, so long as these drivers have completed and passed a Portland City Code criminal record background check with annual updates. Approval will give riders who are experiencing disability a broader range of choices for transit services and the ability to travel more freely, a benefit that most of us enjoy. So adoption will increase the ability of our Lyft paratransit program to meet its on-time performance by offering improved services at a lower cost. So therefore, I recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager. Do we have a motion to approve Resolution 23-12-64?
Moved.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. Is there a second? Second. I don't get to do that often enough. I like to give folks a chance, and they are so enthusiastic. It has been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make a comment before we go to a vote? I did see Director Edwards and then Director Frisbee.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have a question, and this may be a question for our legal counsel. And maybe I misconstrue this, but does this somehow widen the net, perhaps, if someone that maybe doesn't fall under the, didn't have previously a criminal background check, or someone that is okay with a criminal background check, they completed it before and they're working here. Something happens now, and they go back and look, and they do a second criminal background check, and something comes up that wasn't there before, but they've been working at TriMet for, we'll just say a year or two, or maybe even longer. How would that impact them going forward?
Eric, we're going to turn to you on the legal piece.
Yeah.
Of this.
Good morning, members of the board. Eric Van Hagen. I'm the Director of Legal Services. For the TNC requirements for the City of Portland, I'll answer them both with respect to the TNC requirements for the City of Portland require an annual recertification. So that background check is renewed on the anniversary. And so that addresses that problem. For a TriMet employee, I'm almost positive that it's an expectation that the employees report that. We do not renew those fingerprint background checks on a regular basis.
Okay.
And I tell me if I'm wrong. I heard you asking, is this going to change anything with respect to TriMet employees?
Yes.
But we're not talking about TriMet employees in this resolution.
Just the lift.
Oh, yeah, and only subcontractors.
Thank you.
And if I may, current lift contractors all re-background check every year their operators. So all of our direct contractors do a fingerprint background check initially to come on board with us, and then TransDev does a supplemental criminal background check annually.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Frisbee?
Thanks for bringing this to us today. I think I'm going to rehash this same question. I just am framing it in a slightly different way, and then I have a second follow-up question. So, just to be clear, because I think it's important for the public too to understand, this is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this is not expanding the universe of people who have to take a background check in order to receive a contract with TriMet. It is actually simplifying the process so that folks who have already undertaken a background check can use that same background check to work for TriMet.
Subcontract.
Or to subcontract.
Yes.
Sorry, to subcontract.
Yes. So if a TNC driver is registered with the City of Portland as a private for hire provider, they have undergone a criminal background check that is consistent with the National Association of Public Background Check, NAPRS. Yeah. Which is a very stringent check. So that would be consistent, and it would just allow them to be a part of a subcontracted service program.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. And then my other question, which I think General Manager Dessou highlighted quickly in his presentation, but just want to make sure this aligns with sort of other best practices done by other transit agencies across the country.
Absolutely. We are MBTA, WMATA, DART, I mean, the biggest transit agencies in the country are already using the taxi cab exemption, which is allowed by the FTA, and the FTA is actually encouraging same-day on-demand service provision using this model. So we feel strongly that because riders can opt into this level of service, not only does it reflect President Gonzalez, what you asked us to be innovative in October when we were coming to you with an unleaded fuel plan. 28% of the TNC drivers in Portland drive electric vehicles, and 32% drive hybrid vehicles. So that gets us 60% of their fleets are green. And those are vehicles that we would be using in service in shared rides to our riders at a lower cost. So we take a bunch of those deliverables of cleaner service, better service, lower cost service, and same-day service. Right now, our riders have to book their trips up to 3 days in advance. So if your friend calls you today and wants to have lunch, you can't do it. You have to wait until tomorrow. And that's just an experience that the rest of our riders don't have. So this would give us the opportunity to expand that to them.
I see CAT Committee Chair Campbell nodding in the background at same-day service. So thank you for your answers.
Director Kim?
Thank you. I look forward to supporting this resolution. But I will just comment on the potential incorrect perception of TriMet board, moving away with this fingerprint-based criminal record background check. But I'm a big fan of us being consistent with the rest of the jurisdictions and innovative to us, yes, absolutely. But, taking a step back, now we're on par with the rest of the world. And so I really look forward to removing this particular burden, getting us closer to other goals we have. So thank you.
And I'll take the opportunity to express my pleasure, my gratitude in seeing us take this step. I don't remember how long ago it was that we were talking about how we can better integrate and partner with other mobility solution providers. I have said for the longest time, I think our public is best served when TriMet is not only focused on its own fleet, but actually begins to lean into talking about mobility solutions at large. And this is a step in that direction. And so for great clarity for the public, whether it's Lyft with an I or Lyft with a Y, we're sort of expanding the potential universe of solutions for our providers, and it's coming with the same point of origin. Where you order a ride, you now have greater options. I want to emphasize something here because we're not changing the threshold of safety for our Lyft with an I providers, but we're now inviting a whole cohort of paratransit providers, Lyft with a Y, Ubers, and anyone else that comes online to be able to join that. Now, I heard it's an opt-in, and if I understand correctly, please, for the sake of public, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the user, the rider, that opts into this program.
Yes.
So if you use the paratransit service today, rest assured, you're getting Lyft with an I and the fingerprint background coming to serve you. And if you would like to, you can now opt into expanding that universe so that you get the Uber and the Lyft with a Y. And is it all the Uber and Lyft providers that would come into this, or do they opt into this sort of program as well?
No, so if someone is an authorized transportation network provider in the city of Portland, and we have a contract with their parent company, then they would be, any of their operator partners would be eligible to provide service to the riders who opt in.
If I'm an Uber driver today and my phone pings me with, you've got a new assignment, do they know at that stage if it's someone coming through the TriMet pipeline from the paratransit service, or if it's someone sort of just using their app?
They don't right now because we don't have the agreement in place and the structure in place, but they will when we have that agreement in place. Yes.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing how this evolves, and it is an evolving trend. All of this getting to par with other agencies is very, very new. The FTA, I think, was earlier this year that really announced this. So I'm really excited to see us doing this. I'm really excited to see us partnering with some private sector providers for the sake of the public. And my hope is that this not only expands service, but also expands our working relationship with some of these paratransit providers. I see it as a step in a great direction. I look forward to supporting this. And I don't see any other comments or anyone raising hands on the board side, so we're going to go ahead and move into a vote. Let's see here. All of those in favor of approving Resolution 23-12-64, please do so now by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Well, motion carries unanimously. Thank you once again.
I'm just staying for one more.
Fantastic. So next, we have Resolution 23-12-65, authorizing the amendment of the Committee on Accessible Transportation, CAT, and their bylaws. Mr. General Manager, your comments, please.
Thanks, President Gonzalez and members of the board. Thank you, Eileen, for that presentation. TriMet's Committee on Accessible Transportation, referred to as CAT, was established by the Board of Directors in 1984. The group charge is to review and evaluate all current and future transportation services, for older adults and people living with disabilities, including policies, procedures, procurements, budgets, and funding. The board exercises oversight over CAT and must approve bylaws and all amendments by resolution. The resolution before you today requests authorization of amendments to the CAT bylaws that better define the committee's purposes. They also clarify the committee's expectation for conduct during meetings and better describe roles and responsibilities among some other changes. First off, I want to thank Eileen and her team. Would like to thank Jan Campbell, our chair, and also would like to thank our Director Edwards for their involvement in developing these amendments to the full proposal, which is included in the detail of your board packet. Your approval is recommended.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 23-12-65?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Director Edwards. I want to say we have a motion from Director Lewis and a second from Director Edwards. It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make a comment before we vote? Yes, Director Lewis.
Incredible work. This was very, very well done. I mean, I went through it 3 times. Thank you, Jan, for, I'm going to say, your posse and all the work that went into these bylaws. Excellent. It's a proud moment that come from where you were to now. Good job. Thank you. It's an excellent piece of bylaw that I think will live into the work that you have going forward. A lot of forward thinking went into this. You can tell that hours and hours and hours. I can imagine the list of emails back and forth, but thank you. Well done. Thank you. Oh, and Director Edwards, too.
Thank you, Director Lewis. Director Edwards?
Thank you, Chair. I certainly want to thank Jan and her leadership and the leadership of the officers at CAT. They continue to impress me, and I certainly appreciate the fact that I've had an opportunity to work with you all. Eileen, your support and the support of staff has been stellar as well, so thank you all very much.
Director Frisbee.
I just want to take this moment to echo my thanks. This soothed every part of my slightly bureaucratic, perfectionist soul. So thank you, all of you. This is, I hope, to me, as I was reading this, it made me so excited about the work that CAT will do in the next couple of years. It just really created such a firm foundation. So I want to say thank you. I see Chair Campbell back there, Director Edwards, the staff. Thank you so much for all your work. Everyone on CAT, I hope you know how appreciated you are. And then a slight comment, I also really appreciated that this set the forum for using this, for discussing accessibility issues for Portland streetcar. I love to see that connectivity between TriMet and the streetcar and using people's time appropriately so that folks can show up to one meeting to talk about both systems. So thank you so much.
Fantastic. I had the pleasure of sitting in the previous CAT committee for a chunk of it and was thoroughly impressed by the participation of the members, the leadership. Jan, you run a tight ship. It's been a fantastic. I left impressed with the way the committee works, and seeing the bylaws coming through in this format emphasizes the dedication this committee has to this work and the focus that the committee has around its priorities. You set the bar for the rest of our committees, and as far as how you structure, how you organize, and really it bodes well for the effectiveness of this committee's work. It's no small ask to bring members of the public forward, in many cases in a volunteer format, to put their energy towards the work of the agency. But it's work like this that I think makes it not only effective, but meaningful and worthwhile for the individuals that volunteer their time. So thank you, of course, to the board and to the staff, but super thank you to all of the members of the public that bring their time and their talent forward to become organized in this way. It's difficult to get work done when there's a cacophony, but what I'm seeing right now is what's starting to look like a chorus, and that's when the work really becomes effective. So I'm really excited to see what comes next as this committee's work continues. Let's see, so with that, I think it's time we move into a vote. All of those in favor of approving resolution number 23-12-65, please do so now by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Well, we have a unanimous approval. Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Keep up the good work, Kat. All right. Next, we're moving right along. I think we're just going to continue. I know we're going to be losing a board member here at noon, was it? Thank you. Let's see what we can accomplish before you've got to go, Director Frisbee. Next, we have resolution number 23-12-66, authorizing a contract modification with Stacy and Whitbeck Incorporated for construction manager, general contractor, CMGC services for the Banfield Track Rehabilitation Project. Mr. General Manager, your comments.
President Gonzalez, members of the board, as TriMet shuts down parts of the MAC system for the Better Red project coming up in January, as I mentioned in my report, we're also tackling other projects to lessen future disruptions to passengers. So the upcoming 6-week shutdown includes TriMet's oldest and highest speed light rail corridor along the Banfield, or what is more commonly referred to as I-84. Up to half of the 39-year-old timber ties in the stretch between Gateway Transit Center and the Lloyd Center stations need to be replaced within the next few years. In addition, we also need to replace sections of curved track and associated components. So Stacy and Whitbeck, an experienced and specialized trike contractor, was selected by the board last June as the project's CMGC. They are also expecting to complete as much of the work as possible during the upcoming Better Red disruption. The resolution before you today requests board authorization for a contract modification for construction services in the amount of $8.2 million, plus a $400,000 for possible change orders. With pre-construction services, that brings the total contract authority to about $8.75 million. The amount is included in Maintenance Operations Division FY24 budget. Stacy and Whitbeck has about 865 employees. Roughly 30% are minority, 15% are female. The firm plans to use Oregon-certified small business contractors for about 10% of the work, and I recommend your approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 23-12-66?
So moved, Kim.
Thank you, Director Kim. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Lewis. Does anyone wish to make comments or raise questions before we move to a vote? And just quick sanity check, we're still at quorum. I know Director Frisbee stepped out momentarily. Okay.
She's coming back.
She's coming back? Oh, thank you. I see you behind the screen now. Thank you. I was just offering the opportunity for comments or questions. We've been moved and seconded. Okay. Well, exciting. I certainly hope we're able to accomplish a lot of work during the closure. I know it's a big deal. So all of those in favor of approving resolution number 23-12-66, please do so now by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And now we're moving into resolution number 23-12-67, authorizing the contracts with CBM Systems LLC, Columbia Pressure Washing LLC, and DeMack and Associates Clean LLC for custodial goods and services in 5 regions. Mr. General Manager, your comments, please.
President Gonzalez and members of the board, TriMet contracts for custodial service in our office spaces, our break rooms, layover areas, and transit centers. The services are divided among 5 geographic regions. Our contract expired yesterday, but the work was already underway to identify contractors to fill these roles. For the needed services, TriMet looked at ways to increase opportunities for small businesses and disadvantaged business enterprise. We began the process by contacting more than 20 COVID-certified firms. When we say COVID, we're referring to the Oregon Certification Office for Business Inclusion and Diversity. TriMet then issued an invitation to bid, which received 11 responses. However, 3 were deemed non-responsive, and of those remaining 8 firms, the Source Evaluation Committee awarded separate contracts for different regions within the TriMet district. CBM Systems for approximately $4.2 million, Columbia Pressure Washing for about $2.2 million, and DeMack and Associates Cleaning for about $863,000. The total value of the 3 contracts is nearly $7.2 million, and each has a 5-year term. Finally, total contract amounts will be based on the agency's actual usage of the service. The amounts are included in the facility's maintenance budget for FY24 and beyond. There's a lot of diversity within these firms. CBM's workforce of 192 people is nearly 70% minority and 70% female. Columbia Pressure Washing is a 19-person workforce. It's 100% minority and 42% female. And DeMack and Associates is a COVID certified, and its 30-person workforce is 83% minority and 50% female. I recommend your approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 23-12-67?
So moved.
I heard Director Kim. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. It has been moved and seconded. Now, does anyone wish to make comments or raise questions before we vote? I've got a question. Are any of these 3 firms that you've recommended for awards, are any of them new to TriMet, new partners? Would this be the first time any of them get a contract with TriMet?
No, they're all incumbents. CBM had the prior contract. Columbia Pressure Washing has multiple contracts, as so does DeMack and Associates.
Okay, thank you. And while I appreciate this procurement process to help expand opportunities, and I really like the right sizing of bids and the establishment of regions, it looks like it creates great opportunities in the procurement process. In doing so, I see that there's a longer list of bidders. Could you speak to whether any of those other bidders that have not been recommended, if they're first time bidders with us, did we initiate conversations with new vendors through this procurement process is really what I'm aiming for.
We did. House of Lopez has been a company that is interested in getting a TriMet contract for quite some time. Unfortunately, they have not been successful, but we continue to work with them to debrief after solicitations are over and closed to help them become more competitive. The other companies are all new as well. So, we've done a lot of outreach with PBDG, NAMAC, Latino Build, and OWAMI to try to garner interest. And a lot of these firms are new companies that are looking to do business with TriMet.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad to hear that. And I highly encourage those bidders and those that are new to TriMet, even if you weren't successful this time in the bid, to take advantage of Lester and his team's debriefs, to learn how to leverage this experience for future bidding opportunities. as someone who's done business with government, it takes a lot of cracks at the bat many times, and while it's time-consuming and can be a little bit frustrating at times, getting through that threshold is a vital step in building that relationship with your agency. So please, do not be discouraged, and we'd love to see you continuing to bid and trying to do business with TriMet. Clearly, there's a lot of work to be done, not just in this cycle, but subsequently. So thanks for your outreach and your effort in this procurement process. Yes, Director Kim?
On that topic, I'll just make an additional comment. I mean, as a sort of a newer, smaller shop, it would be practically impossible for them to have a responsive bid. I mean, I can't fathom how they would know, although, you know, for those experienced, so straightforward, right? It was not responsive, so we crossed those three off. I don't know the stories, but hopefully our staff can look into the next 5 to 10 years and hoping that we can coach them in a way, although that's not our main job description, so that those folks can hopefully have at least a responsive bid, so that we can consider in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kim. Anyone else? All right, seeing no other board comments, I'd like to go ahead and bring us to the vote. All of those in favor of approving Resolution 23-12-67, please do so now by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions?
Yeah, aye.
Thank you, Director Edwards. Sounds like we've got a passed resolution unanimously. Thank you very much.
Correction, almost you meant. I abstained.
Oh, I thought you said aye.
No, I abstained.
Oh, you abstained.
Yeah.
Oh, pardon me. Correction for the record, we had one abstention, and that was Director Edwards. It was not a unanimous pass. Did you get that? Thank you. Thank you, General Counsel. All right. Next, we have a resolution number 23-12-68, authorizing a contract with Stacy & Whitbeck Incorporated for construction services for the Willamette Shoreline Trestle Repair and Nebraska Street Crossing Replacement Project. Mr. General Manager, your comments, please.
President Gonzalez, members of the board, the Willamette Shoreline Railroad right-of-way corridor is owned by the Willamette Shoreline Consortium, which consists of 4 partners, the cities of Lake Oswego, Portland, Metro, and TriMet. The right-of-way corridor is used by the Willamette Trolley, which travels between Portland's south waterfront and Lake Oswego. Within the consortium, TriMet's responsibility includes providing routine inspections along the corridor and evaluating, among other things, the structural integrity of wooden trestles. TriMet also oversees the implementation of solutions. These ongoing efforts preserve and maintain the infrastructure for the possibility of future transit use. Inspection of the trestle in 2020 identified new repairs necessary for the 3 trestles in order to maintain safe operations. As a result of that discovery, TriMet suspended trolley operations that passed over the trestles until the repairs could be completed. In addition, our South Nebraska Street crossing, which provides access across the right-of-way to the Willamette Park, is failing and also in need of repairs. The crossing is constructed of rail on wood ties capped with asphalt. Restoration will include replacement of the failed wood ties with concrete crossing panels and heavier rails. TriMet issued an invitation to bid for the project in September and obtained 2 bids in October. Stacy & Whitbeck's proposal was the low bid and came closest to TriMet's independent cost estimate. Its bid also was deemed to be fair and reasonable. The resolution would authorize award of the contract to Stacy & Whitbeck at a total amount of $3.5 million, plus possible change orders up to about 10% of the contract value. Funding is included in our FY24 budget for engineering and construction. Stacy & Whitbeck has about 865 employees roughly, 30% are minority, and 15% are female. And I recommend your approval.
Thank you for that, General Manager. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 23-12-68?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Way. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Lewis. It has been moved and seconded. Do we have any questions or comments from the board before we move into a vote? I had a question. So I'm familiar with that part with that little stretch of rail line. I've seen it several times. Is it part of our regular service?
It is not. It is the trolley runs to preserve the right-of-way for future use, but it is not operated by TriMet.
Thank you. And is it represented in any way, shape, or form in the Forward Together conversations that we've had? Okay.
I don't believe so.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, I know, as we move forward with Vision 2030, I know that we're implementing new strategies, and ridership is the holy grail of all of that. And part of this is state of good repair. While this is not embedded in that overall strategy, I understand that these are the blocking and tackling of just getting the assets that we are responsible for to continue to be usable. So I appreciate you bringing this forward, and I just wanted to clarify that for the public and for the board as well. Oh, yes, Director Frisbee.
My understanding is that this maintenance is necessary in order to maintain the right-of-way for a potential, well, one would assume it would be a small start project, but for a potential fixed system to that part of the region. Is that right? Awesome.
Correct.
Thank you. Sorry, I saw the head nods. I didn't give you a chance. So appreciate that protection, and I know there are folks who have worked on that project for a really long time, including my mother a long time ago. So certainly are interested in seeing it move forward. I'll just let the board know I will abstain from this vote as the funding comes from a federal earmark, which my boss helped secure. So I will abstain from this, but appreciate the work going on to hopefully make one day that access and connectivity a possibility.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, with that, I'd like to move us to a vote. All of those in favor of approving Resolution 23-12-68, please do so at this time by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying abstain. I was slightly confused with the aye. I just thought you were coming in later. Pardon me. So with that, we have passage of Resolution 23-12-68 with one abstention. Thank you. Okay. And I really appreciate the tenacity of the board. I know that we've been plowing through these, and we're getting through a lot of business today. Now, for the next resolution, which is resolution number 23-12-69, I am going to pause the meeting of general business so that the board may convene as the TriMet Contract Review Board, the TCRB. So now, as TCRB, Oregon Public Contracting Law and our TCRB rules allow the board, in its role as the TCRB, to exempt a contract procurement from the low bid process so that the agency may consider factors other than price in the awarding of a contract. Resolution number 23-12-69 is requesting the TCRB to authorize a class exemption for on-call building and site maintenance, repairs, and improvement services. Mr. General Manager, your comments, please.
President Gonzalez, members of the board, members of the TriMet Contract Review Board. Let me correct myself here. TriMet has contracted with several firms in recent years to provide on-call building and site maintenance services at facilities across the 533 square mile service district that we serve. Traditionally, there are smaller projects and have been classified as maintenance and repair services. Staff believes that they are better classified as public improvements because they often can include extensive work. This resolution seeks authorization for a class exemption from low bid requirements that would allow a best value solicitation for contractors to perform on-call maintenance and repair projects at various TriMet facilities. This would allow TriMet to conduct a solicitation for the services exclusively for contractors certified by Oregon Certification Office for Business Inclusion and Diversity, or COBIT. The services provided under the contract would include building and site maintenance, repairs, and improvements of TriMet-owned or leased properties. The disciplines required for this work includes carpentry, drywall, flooring, painting, masonry, plumbing, and other construction services. The estimate costs for the various projects would range from $5,000 to a maximum of $800,000. If approved, the exemption from low bid requirements authorized by this resolution would facilitate opportunities for COBIT certified firms to win contracts and build capacity through the project delivery method. And I recommend your approval.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 23-12-69?
Moved.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. Is there a second?
Second, Kim.
Thank you, Director Kim. Now, before we move to a vote, do we have any comments or questions from the board regarding this resolution? For the sake of building momentum in this work, I know that we've seen you come to the board and ask for TCRB approval on exemptions now a couple of times, and while I'm excited to see what opportunities it can present, I'd love if you could share some thoughts, Les, on what you hope to accomplish in going through this procurement pathway.
Absolutely, thank you. President Gonzalez, members of the board, Les Spittler, Director of Procurement and Supply Chain Management. Small businesses, and especially those certified by COBID, face a lot of challenges when competing with larger non-certified firms. They don't have the generational wealth, they don't have the access to capital, they don't have the staffing and the experience. And so by creating these small business set-asides, we are removing barriers to entry. We're limiting the competition so that these COBID firms are only competing against themselves. And this particular exemption allows for an on-call contract whereby the companies that are awarded will get experience doing multiple projects for TriMet, working for Jeremy's team in facilities management. Thereby, at the end of that 5-year term, they will not only have that experience, they'll know the administrative and technical requirements of doing work for TriMet, and they'll be that much more prepared to compete on the open market against non-certified firms in the future. So building capacity, removing barriers are two values at the core of this resolution and at the core of a lot of what we do. The state of Oregon recently completed a disparity study. That disparity study resulted in substantial disparities between companies that exist and the work that they get from state agencies. One of the recommendations from the consultant who conducted the disparity study was for the state to start creating small business set-asides such as this one. So this is something that TriMet has done in the past and has resulted in good results, and so we want to keep doing it. And we keep listening for feedback, we keep working with contractors, we keep making relationships and trying to garner interest so that our public dollars can go to local small businesses that have either faced discrimination in the past or not have had access to government contracts.
Thank you. And I know it may be too early to say definitively, but do you anticipate, much like with the cleaning services contract, to ultimately come forward with a recommendation to bring more than one vendor online for this type of work under this procurement path?
So we do intend to make multiple awards. That is obviously based on the number of responses that we receive. I'm not certain, based on the number of awards, that each of those contracts will be over $1 million. And so if they're less than $1 million, the board would see those awards via the monthly delegated authority report instead of a resolution for the specific awards that you've seen for the custodial contracts.
Thank you. I'm encouraged to hear that, and I would hope our vendors in the region are encouraged to hear that. It could potentially yield more than one vendor to be brought forward. And I would say, even if you ultimately do end up bringing forward multiple vendors and it all goes under the 1 million, for the sake of closure on this process, I would be interested if you could at least bring back information on whether you did ultimately end up getting enough vendors, and even if it's below the 1 million, just to let us know that this procurement channel did yield that type of result.
Sounds good.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, Director Kim?
Yeah, I was going to make this comment, but I really love what we're doing with opening up this board and having this unique setup to make a difference that we didn't have to, right? We didn't have to. So long as, moving forward, so long as Shelley's team deemed this process legally sufficient, I would love to see more of these. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
And I'll take the opportunity to add, this procurement pathway relies on a unique approach when it comes to outreach. And that's a more time and labor sensitive kind of haul for your procurement team. So in addition to you bringing these creative approaches forward, I also appreciate the work of you and staff to get out in the community, show your face, shake some hands, make the kind of relationships necessary so that our vendors are willing to, the new vendors especially, are willing to actually come forward and answer that call. It's a two-way street, and much like we have seen with some of our key DBEs that are now doing tremendous business with us, none of that work today would have been possible without that outreach and encouragement, frankly, early on. So I hope we do get some great response. I hope this brings some new vendors forward that 5 years from now are names that we are familiar with because the contracts are such that we have to bring them to the board for approvals. Very encouraging. And yeah, we don't have to do the work, but in today's market, we're having to, what I call, prime the pump of our supply chain. And this kind of work does exactly that. So I appreciate that. Yes, of course. Director Wade.
And to write on that, what President Gonzalez was saying, I also really just appreciate this different approach and creativity, and your team really going out to the communities with these subcontractors who are, COVID, to really get their take on what are the barriers and challenges that they're facing. So thank you for this work. Because you mentioned the state's also approach with this and also minimizing barriers, I think it would be great for us at some point to also, present our findings and hopefully highlight some successes back to the legislature so that they can also glean from what is working well on the ground and what we're doing as TriMet to really, diversify the contracts that we're awarding. So thank you.
All right, good stuff. I see no other hands raised by the board, so I'm going to move us to a vote. All of those in favor of approving resolution number 23-12-69, please do so now by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you very much. We look forward to hearing how this goes. All right. We're rounding third base, fellow board members and public. Now, I'd like to see, now that we've done the vote as TCRB, it's time for us to adjourn our TCRB and resume the TriMet, and reconvene as TriMet Board of Directors for the balance of the meeting. So, changing of hats taking place. All right, now I'd like to bring forward ordinance number 376 for its first reading and public hearing. We are going to consider TriMet's annual housekeeping ordinance required to reconnect TriMet's definition of net earnings from self-employment in the TriMet Code, Chapter 14, with the definition of the federal tax code. Today, we will have a public hearing on ordinance number 376, and then we will have the second reading of the ordinance and the vote during our January board meeting. And first, I would like to ask General Counsel Shelley Devine to read the ordinance by title only.
Thank you, President Gonzalez. Ordinance number 376 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, amending Chapter 14 of the TriMet Code to revise the definition of net earnings from self-employment. As you noted, this is the first reading and public hearing.
Thank you, General Counsel Devine. Now, before we have the public hearing on ordinance number 376, Mr. General Manager, do you have any comments about this ordinance?
Thanks, President Gonzalez and members of the board. This is procedural. It's an annual housekeeping item. It reconnects TriMet's code to the federal tax code, providing clarity for taxpayers and the IRS. So, thank you.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Does the board have any questions or comments before we hold a public hearing? No. Okay. So, thusly, we begin the public hearing on ordinance number 376. Are there any witnesses who would like to testify on ordinance number 376? We didn't have any sign-ups, neither in person nor online. Okay. If no one wishes to testify, then I will close the public hearing now at this time.
It's the sexiest of transit issues, President Gonzalez. I can't believe we don't have a line of witnesses at the door.
Noted. And that concludes ordinance 376 for this meeting. And as I mentioned, we will take a roll call vote after the second reading of this ordinance at our January 2024 meeting. So stay tuned for that. Okay. This concludes our business meeting for today. Just a reminder, our next board meeting will be January 24 of the year 24, here at the University of Oregon campus in Portland. And while I am excited to move our board meetings to our brand new home over at One Main Place someday soon, we're simply not ready for that yet. I think they're putting down carpet or something like that as we speak. I don't know. I don't know how far along we are. But we will be here at the White Stag then, yes, once again in the January board meeting. And I think that's it. I'm going to do this, and then, and now, following today's business meeting, we do have a briefing. Director Frisbee, we've conducted the business for today. I understand that you have matters to attend to. We will be staying for a few minutes longer here, and you're welcome to stay for whatever you can or cannot. No worries. We have a briefing on the Skidmore Fountain Station review and proposed closure. So I'd like to say, let's take a 10-minute break. Yes, before we start the briefing.
I'll just say apologies
Hearing
to the staff and my fellow board members. I have a throwing up child at home, so I gotta go.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to reconvene in 10 minutes. Thank you very much. So we'll see you back here at 5 past the hour.
Thank you.
Of course. We'll be done by then. We should be done. So we are going to go ahead and resume the today. I don't call it a meeting. We're going to resume our brief. Thank you for that. I was pulling for words. So now we have a briefing. We did have a few board members that have some things that they must attend to, and fortunately, we've taken care of the business for the day. So for the sake of making sure that we and the public get to hear about this, we're going to move forward with today's briefing. The entire board does already have the materials you've supplied, and I confirm that they are well aware of what we're covering in today's briefing, so that none of them will be surprised. But for the sake of making sure that the rest of the world is aware, we're going to go ahead and proceed. We've done the break. Here we go. We've got this item concerning the future of the Skidmore Fountain Max Station. And Director Lewis will be right back. Oh, good. Oh, good. You're within earshot. Please, Mr. General Manager, break us open.
Thank you, President Gonzalez and members of the board. About 4.5 years ago, TriMet board directors at the time voted to make MAX service in downtown Portland more efficient with the closure of 3 stations. A decision about closing a 4th station, the Skidmore Fountain MAX station, was essentially delayed and was to be reevaluated in 2022. The pandemic pushed out our timeline for revisiting the closure, but as ridership at the station and development around it have not improved. And we wanted to revisit the closure now with you. So Executive Director of Public Affairs, J.C. Vanetta, and Senior Planner Grant O'Connell are here to now provide an update and the strategy for moving forward with the closure. So, J.C., I'll just turn it over to you.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. And board members, Chair Gonzalez, we are really reopening this conversation around the closing of Skidmore Fountain Station. And we have begun conversations out there with some of the key folks in the community. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to bring this to you first off because you had asked to revisit this at some point in time when it was appropriate. And we do think that now is the appropriate time, but that also in January, we will begin our re-engaging the public around the closure of this station to get their thoughts and feelings as we approach, and then we'll also map out a timeline of when we plan on bringing it before you to take further action. And without that, I'll pass it over to Grant O'Connell. I just also want to say thank you to Grant, who has been leading this effort on the station optimization. He's just done an amazing job for us and really listening to all of the voices around the table and making sure they're heard as we undertake this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, JC. Thank you, General Manager Sue and the TriMet Board. Thank you for having me today. This presentation, the first part of it will be a refresher for some, but then we'll move into some new information since the 2018-2019 effort. But I always like to start with this slide because it, in the most succinct terms, helps illustrate the issue that we look at under this project. As you can read by the customer comment that we receive via the SIP process, some folks, particularly this comment's oriented around Pioneer Square, where someone may transfer from the blue and red to the orange line, and there were at the time 2 stations within 2 blocks of each other. But that really prompted us to take a comprehensive look at MAX service throughout downtown. Next slide, please. So you see here kind of a quick snapshot, a way to break up the red and blue alignment from Sunset all the way through to Gateway, kind of in 3 distinct chunks, and you get a quick example of what that experience is like for our riders. Traveling from Sunset, they can get all the way into Portland over 5 miles with just 3 stations in 9 minutes. And similarly, coming in from the east side, from Gateway, traveling about 5 miles into downtown, or at least the Lloyd District, it takes only 5 stations, takes 11 minutes. But to get through the central core of Portland, only 3 miles, requires stopping at 10 station, and takes 21 minutes now with the closure of the 2 stations. but we wanted to take another look at that question mark there, the Skidmore Fountain Station. This is the light rail system. It's important to remember it was designed starting in the late 70s, and I think we would all agree that we would build it a little bit differently today if we were starting from scratch. Next slide, please. So in thinking about that, before the Silicon Forest explosion on the west side, the central business district of downtown Portland was the largest concentration of employment in our metro area. And so in that thinking in the 1970s, the light rail system began to be designed around that, to get people from close-in neighborhoods or suburban cities into the central business district. But moving forward, now with the explosion of jobs out on the west side, we find ourselves trying to adapt to both still serving that central business district, but also connecting the inner residential areas of Portland with those new working wage, very good wage jobs out on the west side, while still also serving the central business district. Most importantly, next slide, please. In the past 15 to 20 years, there's been a huge sea change in the demographics of where people live. It was historically the central neighborhoods of Portland were the areas of concern for minority and low-income folk, but that has almost entirely reversed. It has become so desirable to live in the urban core of Portland that that has pushed out marginalized populations out into the suburbs. So we face this challenge where some of those who need our services the most are then the furthest away from the jobs that we need to try to get them to. Next slide, please. There's an inherent trade-off within service planning about how we plan light rail or even bus service, where we want to both be convenient but also fast. And so this is just a quick primer of how we think about stop spacing, and I know those who've worked on the Division Transit Project are familiar with these concepts. But within a quarter mile, you've got fairly high convenience, but maybe a little lower speed. And that area within the shaded blue in the middle there, between two stops, could conceivably be considered covered by both stations or both stops. We usually try to move a little closer to a third of a mile because you start to see that shaded area diminish. That gets a little bit higher convenience, still high convenience, but a little bit faster speed. Next slide, please. Still within that range is about a half-mile spacing, which is considered appropriate for light rail, particularly. At that point, you pretty much balance convenience and speed with access. And then going beyond that starts to get very low convenience, but higher speed, and that might be appropriate, say, between Sunset and Goose Hollow, where we're traveling through the West Hills with just that one stop at Washington Park. So with that sort of primer in mind about how we think about the trade-off between convenience and speed, next slide, please. This is what applying that same concept looks for our light rail system in downtown Portland. Again, the blue shaded areas were 2018, where we would consider there being duplicate coverage of light rail stations. We did close 2 stations, so next slide, please. We've made some improvement there, but still along the First Avenue corridor, we do see pretty significant blue areas shaded for duplicate coverage. Next slide, please. So our primary focus, I'm sorry, go back one, thank you. So this is what coverage would look like if Skidmore were to be closed. We still have duplicate coverage that covers Burnside area. If we even think about it as we stand here in this building, one corner of it touches the Skidmore Fountain Station, the other corner of it touches Cooch Street, and by that point, you're already 1 block to the other station. So it just gives you a concept of what that's like, that experience of being able to imagine what it would be like without that station. Thank you for catching me there, JC. Ridership. While our primary goal is making sure that the stations are efficient and while still serving the area. Ridership is also a consideration. If we look here at the 2018 data where the stations under consideration were highlighted, they were among some of the lowest, although the mall stations are very close, but Skidmore Fountain in particular on the weekdays was second lowest behind Kings Hill. And when we contrast that, say around 2,000 riders at Skidmore Fountain versus the 10,000 people passing through is kind of the key factor there. Next slide, please. This would allow us to save 2.5 minutes throughout downtown. Now we've already realized about 1 minute and 40 seconds of travel time savings, so we're more than 2/3 of our way there. But adding Skidmore Fountain in would bring us to that 2.5 minutes. Now I want to highlight two concepts because that number can seem small. When you think about the number of trains that pass through downtown Portland and you multiply that, that number by that time, you get well over 2 to 3 hours worth of operational time savings across the system. Also, the cumulative number of that 10,000 people traveling through, you can give that back to their individual lives. So that number quickly multiplies, though it may seem small. But I would also highlight, imagine that feeling of being stuck in traffic. A lot of times some of our point of view is reference. Our concept of time is often determined by how we perceive it. 2.5 minutes sitting at a light rail station when you've just served 1-2 blocks back can feel like a very long time, like when you're sitting in traffic in car. Next slide, please. So we did in 2018 and 2019 do extensive outreach and engagement, and JC has maybe some further notes on that.
I would just say it was quite extensive, and if you were on the board, then you also probably heard from the community as well, and that's why the board did say to put it off and revisit it after some time, and obviously COVID has influenced that decision timeline, and again, that's why we're here. But we have done a lot of outreach in the past, and we will begin picking that up here in January.
Thank you. Next slide, please. We did in 2018 also do a survey of onboard and affected riders, and the results of which are there. Over 63% either were neutral or strongly agreed with going ahead and closing the station at that time. Next slide, please. So as JC mentioned, 2018-2019 outcomes. Kings Hill was closed on a trial basis. We went ahead and made that permanent. The mall stations were closed permanently directly at that time. Skidmore was deferred. We wanted to look at ridership, different development issue that was planned or considered around the station, as well as safety and security issues. We also then, in the interim, have been actively involved with Multnomah County's Burnside Bridge project, which would, be directly above the station. And so we've sat in on all of those conversations with the Burnside Bridge, both for our own operations on the bus above, but also what that would mean for the light rail below. So now we're kind of pivoting to talk about what has happened in the interim since that 2018 and 2019 effort. So since then, this is a current snapshot of the ridership of the downtown stations on the red and blue alignment. Skidmore Fountain remains second lowest among its peers. Next slide, please. Another way to look at it is if you consider that, as we do with Forward Together, that we were in this new normal and the pandemic was the low point. How are things trending backwards towards whatever that new normal is? This looks at how each station has grown back from the pandemic low. Again, Skidmore Fountain is at the second lowest among its peers. It's a different conversation, but I found the fascination of what's going on with Goose Hollow, Kings Hill, that it's already exceeded pre-pandemic lows, but that's a fun topic for another conversation. Development and construction. No new development has occurred since 2019. The development that was in discussion at that time has not occurred. Multnomah County is also anticipated to need for us to close the station for 5 years during construction, whether or not we close it permanently. So in effect, we would have 5 years of closure at a minimum for that project. Now, there's a separate question that begs about whether we operate through. If anybody really needs to know that, the current thinking is we would only have to actually entirely not operate light rail under the bridge at all for only 5 weeks, but the station itself would have to be closed for a full 5 years.
And I would also just note around the development of this area, U of O has pulled out of this area. They no longer are here. They've actually moved or will be moving most of it to their new campus. Airbnb had a large presence here, and a lot of those folks are working from home. So it has not, what once used to be there. Oh, go ahead. You have the numbers.
Yeah, Airbnb has actually closed that office entirely, and they laid off all those employees in May 2020. Mercy Corps has approximately 190 employees at their building, but they are 100% remote work policy, and they don't know if or when that will ever change. And then, of course, U of O is relocating to the Concordia campus next fall. So on this conclusion slide, we talk about the downtown stations have significant duplication. And to reiterate that point, when we did the Title VI analysis on the closure, the predefined, prescribed method for how we would analyze this type of situation looks at available services nearby. And so with that only 2-block distance, it was determined that there essentially was no impact because there's an available service nearby under the pre-described method of calculating the Title VI impact. So I think that underscores the point of how close the downtown stations are. So we will be going ahead and taking this conversation out to the public starting January 10th alongside our annual service plan outreach that we will be doing. And then, so next slide, please. I think that'll help illustrate the, yes. Parallel with FY25 service change, online engagement through the webpage and social media, on board at the station with open houses and in partnership with multicultural outreach partners and direct conversations with the affected stakeholders right here around the station. So beyond that, so that's that first slot on the timeline there. We've got community engagement. Then we would bring that information that was gathered as part of that outreach back to the board in March. And then a first board reading and public hearing in April, second reading in May, and then provided that the board approves closure, we could close as early as September 1, 2025, noting also that the Burnside Bridge construction, the public date for closure for beginning construction is also in 2025.
Thank you. Glad to hear you're going to be going back out to our community partners. Curious to see what their sentiments are at this time. When you do arrive, if and when you arrive to that moment of physical closure, is it going to be kind of like the way the Kings Hill station is now, where it's a sign and you could kind of see the relics of the stop, or is this like you erase the infrastructure and it looks like there wasn't a stop there? How do you foresee that going?
That is a bit of an ongoing conversation with the capital project to do that, but Skidmore is a bit more unique that at this station the bridge actually performs the function of a shelter, so there are no shelters, so there's less amenities to remove. But we already have an active project in this situation versus 2018, 2019, so we can actually get that going a little bit sooner than we did then, because we didn't want to get out ahead of the decision to close at that time, so the project couldn't really kick off until then, but now we already do have an active project, so it is our intention to try to be more clear and more clean with that change.
Sure. Yeah. I see this as a really opportune moment to just bring the interest of our community forward in this whole revitalized downtown effort. Whatever, last time we had this conversation, there was a whole lot of energy around, you know, don't turn our backs on this area. We've got all these things moving. It's a good space and it needs attention. We can't ignore it. Now, in today's temperament, I think this is a good opportunity to say, you know, the direction, TriMet's going in a certain direction. What does this mean for this physical piece of land and the land uses and who the tenants are in that region, what the city of Portland has to say about it, because, you know, ultimately, this is an opportunity for us to not turn our back on the space, but to say, hey, we're now yielding this up for a broader definition of what the optimum use of that space is, even though it's not for us to use in the same way. You know, let's see what energy we prompt. I'd certainly love to see more energy in back in downtown, service aside. We want riders going to those other stops. What are they going to do in that area? You know, this is our chance to bring that question proactively.
Agreed, and there's value in these conversations. I will note, you know, one of the issues is that ramp right out the door of this building is not at an accessible grade.
It's not.
And that was part of the consideration that was raised as a part of this process. But through that, we had the opportunity to have that conversation with Multnomah County of, if we're rebuilding the bridge structure above, can we try to address that there? So there were a lot of good things that came out of those conversations, and want to continue that.
Cool. Thanks for this. Good heads up. Awesome. Appreciate your time and way to bring this back. We'll see what it stirs up. Hopefully some good stuff. Thank you, Sam. Thanks to all. Have a great rest of your day. I'm seeing celebrations over here.